Chapter 2906. Looking at the young lady's obviously complacent and teasing smile, Motian's frozen expression slowly loosened up. A sense of helplessness arose in his heart. Just like what Miaoji said. Words could lie. But feelings couldn't lie. He could choose not to believe Miaoji's words. But he couldn't not believe his feelings towards this young lady. His emotions, indeed, could easily be affected by the young lady. Seeing Motian's gloomy face, staring at her without blinking, not saying a single word. Yiqing Luo teased him for a while, but was worried that Motian would really fly into a rage out of humiliation and leave directly. She had to worry about this man again. After all, even if this man lost his memory, his ability was there for all to see. If he wanted to hide, even if she turned the entire Miao tribe upside down, she would definitely not be able to find him. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's lips curled into an evil smile. Both her hands once again circled around the man's waist, shamelessly raised her head and rubbed her chin against his chest. "I know you're shy." Her voice was filled with mischievous joy. "So the kind-hearted me will not force you to admit it." That delicate and lovely look. Just a few soft words of coquettish, which easily soothed all the frustrations in Motian's heart. Especially when the young lady took the initiative to snuggle into his arms. The young lady's fragrance seeped into his heart. The young lady's soft words entered his ears. His heart was already in a mess. This kind of change was completely this body's instinctive change. Motian himself felt extremely inconceivable. In his heart, he recalled those words which he heard in the Miao tribe's tunnel, and recalled those words which Miaoji told him. He could no longer doubt the feelings which he and Yiqing Luo once had. "Be good, you must know my eyes are not blind, in this world. I can't find a better husband than you." Yiqing Luo hooked his neck, tiptoed and gave his rosy lips a light peck. Very light, very fast. Motian had yet to feel it carefully. Yiqing Luo had already moved away, looking at him with a smile. The young lady's face was like a peach blossom, so beautiful that it made one suffocated. 3,000 strands of black hair intertwined with his black hair. It was like a sign that they would be entangled like this. The corners of Motian's eyes suddenly twitched upwards as he gave off a devilish charm. In Mo Yao's peach blossom eyes, an extremely enchanting black flower sprout bloomed. He suppressed his voice and whispered in her ear, "If you meet a man who is better than me, will you abandon me and choose someone else? Does the overlord have no confidence in yourself?" Yiqing Luo wrapped her arms around his sturdy waist as her eyes followed suit, asking back with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Motian's eyes flashed as he increased the strength of his fingers, pressing her petite body tightly into his embrace. He leaned close to her ear and said, "It seems that I have to keep an eye on you." This sentence made Yiqing Luo's eyelashes flutter rapidly for a few times. Her body stiffened as she lifted her eyes to look at the man's face. It was as if he couldn't believe it. Motian actually answered her question. And with such a serious tone. One had to know, Motian was in the centrifugal force Gu mode. He did not feel that he liked her at all. And this sentence from Motian. Obviously, he had already admitted that he had feelings for her. It was also implicitly expressing one meaning. In the future, he would always be by her side. The smile on Yiqing Luo's face blossomed bit by bit. Brilliant, like a captivating poppy. Chapter 2907. Yuan was originally oppressed by Motian's aura, as though his soul was about to fly away. In the end, he inexplicably ate a mouthful of dog food. He finally understood why the legendary mysterious Dizun, who even martial highnesses were afraid of, would fall in love with a little girl from the lower realm. This one was called Yiqing Luo. Her pacifying methods were simply too powerful. She could easily pacify the overlord's anger. She could even make the overlord stick to her like glue. Yuan expressed that this mouthful of dog food was too much for him, and he totally could not take it anymore. He braced himself and spoke weakly. "That mistress of the imperial palace, I've already said what I need to say. When are you going to help me to regain my human form?" Earlier under Motian's imposing manner, his soul consciousness was more or less injured. Hearing Yu Yin's voice, Yi Qingluo then recalled that she still had something to do. It was all because the beauty was too misleading. No wonder there were so many monarchs. Once they fell into the beauty's arms, they would never attend morning court. She had forgotten about the important matters for the sake of beauty. Yi Qingluo pouted coquettishly as she stared at Dmo Xian. Following that, she pushed the man away and put on a serious expression as she looked at Yu Yin. Cough cough. And to help you to regain your human form, this? She paused as her mind was pondering over the words to say. Seeing Yi Qingluo keeping silent, Yu Yin's expression suddenly changed. You. What do you mean by this? Yi Qingluo coughed lightly as her gaze fell onto those unmoving corpse puppets, which were lying on the ground not too far away. She immediately opened her mouth. I still have questions, what's the hurry? As soon as she finished speaking, her half-squinted eyes reflected an extremely shallow cold arc. What? You don't believe me? Since you don't believe me, then the deal between us. No. It's not that I don't believe you. Yu Yin hurriedly interrupted Yi Qingluo's words. But in his heart he was secretly gritting his teeth. She had already learned so much about the palace of gloomy darkness from him. After betraying the overlord, today, he absolutely could not return to the Nether Palace. How could he possibly cancel the deal with Yi Qingluo? The only person he could rely on was Yi Qingluo. To be more precise, it could only be His Majesty. Only the Venerable Dizun could fight against the Venerable One. He tried his best to suppress the anger that Yi Qingluo felt towards his insidiousness as he gave an embarrassed smile. Overlord Matriarch, what else do you want to ask? Go ahead, go ahead. Yi Qingluo's brows rose as she pointed to the undead puppets not too far away. According to the two methods you mentioned to resolve the puppets, then. The puppets over there, since they have not been smashed into smithereens, they shouldn't be under your control to stop their attacks. But they didn't climb up to launch another attack. Can you tell me why? You cast a gloomy glance at the puppets and lowered your head in embarrassment. I have spent half my life to create these half-finished toys, so there are still many flaws in these toys. He cautiously took a glance at Dmo Xian's direction. These semi-finished products are created by my mental power. Overlord's mental power is above mine. He attacked these semi-finished products and cut off my mind control, so, that was to say, as long as one's mental strength was above Yu Yin, it was much easier to deal with those undead corpse puppets. Yi Qingluo nodded her head thoughtfully. This time Yu Yin didn't dare to open his mouth to urge Yi Qingluo. Chapter 2908. Yi Qingluo didn't let Yu Yin wait for too long. She pondered for a moment. Suddenly, as though she heard something, she raised her head slightly and stared at Yu Yin with a smile which didn't look like a smile for a long time. It made Yu Yin's hair stand on end. Yi Qingluo then slowly curled her lips, revealing a smile with deep meaning. Her head nodded unnoticeably, as though she was responding to something. Her eyes were filled with craftiness. Let me ask you one last question. Yi Qingluo opened her mouth with a smile. This sentence made Yu Yin's taut nerves relax instantly. His eyes suddenly lit up, and his face revealed an expression of wild joy. He was overly excited that he didn't notice the glint in Yi Qingluo's eyes. Yi Qingluo's gaze looked at Yu Yin quietly, and then she spoke word by word. The revered sir that you mentioned, who exactly is he? Where in the upper realm is he from? This question came out. Yu Yin's joyous expression froze. He shrunk his body and said in a trembling voice, Revered one. Revered one he. His identity, even if I tell you, you absolutely have no way to find him. She could tell. Yu Yin was filled with fear towards that revered one. Mistress of the imperial palace, although your ability in the lower realm is boundless and you can do anything you want, but revered one, he is really someone you can't afford to offend. Even if the overlord is by your side, you will not be able to find him, because you have no way to reach the realm of the revered one. Every word Yu Yin said, his body trembled a little. The fear towards the revered one had already seeped deep into his bones. Yu Yin's attitude, which made Yi Qingluo even more certain. The relationship between the Palace of Darkness and that revered one was just a simple cooperation. When mentioning about the matters of the Palace of Darkness, Yuan sold it out without any embarrassment. But when it came to the revered one, Yuan was so afraid. Yi Qing Luo organized the important contents of Yu Yin's words in her mind. It looked like this revered one was not just someone from the upper realm, and he was at an extremely high place. The upper realm was divided into the earth realm, heaven realm and God realm. To make Yuan insist that she absolutely could not find the revered one and reach that realm. Could it be that the revered one was from God realm? No. God realm. How could the people of the God realm have any thoughts about a lower realm like the Nirvana realm? One had to know that the people of the God realm could practically be called the rulers of all living things in the world. It was almost a legend, a myth. Were there people in the God realm? It was still a puzzle. There was no need to say that the people of the immortal realm had their eyes on her divine phoenix profound heart jade, and had specially planned all of this. She had placed the divine phoenix profound heart jade in front of the people of the God realm. Perhaps the God realm wouldn't even spare them a glance. Yi Qing Luo directly rejected this idea. Then he looked solemnly at Yuan. Whether or not I can find him, or reach his level, is not important. What's important is, I want to know who he is. Yi Qing Luo bent down as her lips curled into a smirk of ridicule. Yuan, do you think that by helping the revered to keep this secret, you will be able to return to the five nether, and return to the side of the revered that you mentioned? Yu Yin's face immediately turned pale. No, I can't go back. Ever since Yu Ji absorbed the last of his mental power, in order to survive. From the moment he made his choice. Chapter 2909. Go back and wait for him. There was only endless torture. This was how the Venerable One treated traitors. He wasn't going to kill him. He was going to pay with his life. Instead, he used extreme means to make him wish he was dead. There was no way he would go back. He would never go back. I'll talk. Yuan clenched his fists. In the end, he made his final decision. He abruptly raised his head, as his eyes were burning, with a tinge of crazed ruthlessness as he stared at Yi Qing Luo, the current me. I've told you everything. I'm yours, don't lie to me. You must help me recover my human form. Then he gritted his teeth and endured the fear that spread from the bottom of his heart. Venerable One, he's from the upper three. Oh. His words had just left his mouth. It was only when he spat out a few words. His pupils suddenly dilated. In that instant his body stiffened. His face instantly turned deathly pale. His extremely wretched face became distorted bit by bit. He had clearly transformed into a physical body. It actually began to turn into an indistinct soul body that was about to dissipate. Yuan looked at his own body in disbelief and fear appeared on his face. He stretched out his hand towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. His mouth opened and moved silently. Save me. Save me. From the shape of his lips, Yi Qing Luo could decipher the gloomy words. This change seemed to have taken a long time. Actually, it only lasted for a moment. At the same time, when something happened to Yuan, Mo Xian's long arm had already wrapped around her waist, pressing her into his embrace. Yuan's outstretched hand naturally touched nothing. His entire body was powerless, and he slumped to the ground. His faintly discernible body seemed to be suffering from pain. It was as if he would disappear with the wind at any time. Yi Qing Luo knitted her brows tightly as she stared at Yu Yin's pained expression, asking Old Man Song for the reason in her mind. However, Yi Qing Luo called out to Old Man Song for quite some time. He didn't even get half a word of response from Old Song. Yi Qing Luo's heart was in a fluster. It was a sudden change in the darkness. Old Man Song was also suddenly uncontactable. It was as if someone had blocked the mental energy of this magnetic field. This thought made Yi Qing Luo's face turn pale. She raised her head and quickly scanned her surroundings. Her little hand clutched tightly onto Mo Xian's collar as she lowered her voice. Xian, have you sensed anything, any other aura? Mo Xian sensed the young lady's panic. He squinted his peach blossom eyes and immediately wrapped his arms around Yi Qing Luo's waist. With a leap, he had already brought Yi Qing Luo as they flew towards a certain direction. Not far from the jungle, a few lush trees intertwined. Two figures were faintly discernible in the forest, looking extremely mysterious. Vaguely, The sounds of people talking could be heard. This guy actually dared to betray the venerable. A cold and delicate female voice rang out. Her tone was filled with ridicule. Beside her, a tall man in a black robe glanced at the woman and scoffed. How dare he betray the venerable one? Heh. His tone was filled with disdain. The woman chuckled coldly. It's also because of Yuji's timely report that we managed to make it in time. Yuji. Seemingly displeased, the woman spat out another man's name. The man's voice sank. That's just a waste who fled. Chapter 29:10. The man's expression softened after hearing the lady's tender words. Yuin is already dead, let's go back to report. His words had just ended. Suddenly, he swiftly grabbed the lady beside him and pulled her into his arms. His figure swiftly retreated a few steps. Swoosh. Mixed with raging profound energy, it smashed onto the ground in an overwhelming manner. Following that, in front of them, a slender figure walked out from the layers of tumbling airwaves. That man was dressed in a purple long robe, as though a king had descended onto the world. With an imposing manner, the man was forced to retreat in a disheveled state. He hugged the lady and finally stabilized himself, swiftly raising his head as he stared vigilantly at the man in front. His gaze was fixed on that man's arms, on the cold-looking young lady. The young lady slowly walked out from that man's arms. A red robe, like a raging flame, wrapped around the young lady's petite figure, bringing along a body, which made one feel pressured. There was clearly a hint of a smile in her alluring eyes, but it made people shudder. Yi Qingluo. The man stared at the young lady, as he slowly spat out a name. The lady in the man's arms, upon hearing this name, immediately stuck her head out from the man's arms. Under the black robe, a pair of bright and sinister beautiful eyes were revealed. And at this moment, Yi Qingluo also clearly saw the faces of the two people in front of her. Her slender brows creased tightly, word by word, accurately calling out their names. Yuhan knew, when these two names came out from Yi Qingluo's mouth. The expression on the man and lady's face instantly changed. They exchanged glances, and from each other's eyes, they could see the bewilderment. These two people were not others. They were the two people whom Yi Qingluo saw in the 21st century's plane, using Netherworld's mirror. The other two underlings of the Overlord. Yuhan and Yu you're here to silence me? Yi Qingluo looked towards Yu Yin's direction. Yu Yin's consciousness body was obviously getting weaker and weaker, and she was still unable to contact Old Man Song. Her heart suddenly felt suspicious. From Yuji's escape from here, the time used at most did not exceed 1 hour. And Yuhan and Yu so quickly rushed over to silence him? Did Yuji have such a fast speed? Or perhaps Yuhan and Yu were actually near the Miao tribe? This thought made Yi Qingluo's expression congealed, as her eyes stared vigilantly at the two people in front of her. Yu also stared at Yi Qingluo without blinking, especially when she saw Yi Qingluo's face. A sliver of unconcealable jealousy flashed past her eyes. She pursed her red lips in a sinister manner, and her delicate voice was cold. Miss Yi is indeed smart to be able to recognize the two of us at first glance. As she was saying that, she shot a sinister gaze towards Diamo Xian. We're really lucky. Not only are we able to see Miss Ye's devastatingly beautiful countenance, we're also able to see the mysterious Overlord. This time round, we've really not lost anything by coming here. After saying that, Yu giggled. Her bright red fingernails gently caressed her red lips. Her smile was extremely charming. Have you thought about the consequences of snatching someone from this sovereign's hands? Diamo Xian looked straight ahead, totally not interested in Ghost Girl's invisible and deliberate seduction. His deep and cold voice didn't fluctuate at all. But in Yu's ears, she could hear the murderous intent in his voice. The smile on Yu's face froze on her face. Yuhan tightened her arms, hugging Yu tightly as she puffed out her chest, blocking Diamo Xian's might, her face filled with vigilance. Diamo Xian glanced sideways slightly, as his vision fell onto a lump of something which couldn't be seen clearly lying on the ground by Yuhan's feet. Chapter 29:11. Serene Yin Spirit Body? Yi Qingluo's gaze followed Diamo Xian's line of sight. Indeed, She saw that bundle of spirit body thing by Yuhan's feet. Wasn't it the Serene Een spirit body? When Yi Qingluo's line of sight fell onto the Serene Een spirit body, Yuhan's expression congealed as her fingers clasped tightly and pulled Yu behind her. Following that, she lowered her head and hooked the Serene Een spirit body. Go. Dmo Xian spat out a word calmly towards Yi Qingluo. The moment his words landed, he had already turned into a purple shadow as he flew towards Yuhan. No matter how fast Yuhan was, it couldn't be compared to Dmo Xian. He didn't even touch the corner of the Serene Een spirit body, but he was sent flying by a tyrannical force. Yuhan had no choice but to give up on the Serene Een spirit body and evaded, which was the instance when he evaded. Yuhan only saw a red shadow flashing past, bringing along an overbearing aura like a raging flame. Yuhan's heart trembled as her pupils expanded rapidly as she looked towards the direction where the Serene Een spirit body fell. There was no sign of the Serene Een spirit body there. Yi Qingluo. Yu's gaze was fixated on Yi Qingluo. The instance when she sensed Yi Qingluo's movement. Yu had already chased after her like a shadow. But still, she wasn't able to stop Yi Qingluo from lifting up the Serene Een spirit body and swiftly leaving. Yu's face was slightly flushed as though she was provoked. In Yu's heart, she had always looked down on Yi Qingluo. She couldn't understand. Why would the almighty, godlike revered be so interested in a young lady from the lower realm? Even for a young lady from the lower realm, he specially sent them, 5 nether, to the lower realm to complete a mission. It was simply like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Bring the spirit body over to Serene Een. After Dmo Xian stopped Yuhan, he returned to Yi Qingluo. His tall figure blocked in front of Yi Qingluo, like a majestic mountain range. Yi Qingluo carried the Serene Een spirit body as she looked at the man's back in a daze. Her brows turned gentle. A faint smile appeared on her lips. If we can capture these two alive, that would be the best. Even though Ghost Hand Wu Yu was an abandoned pawn that the Venerable had placed in the Nirvana realm. However, the abandoned son knew a lot about the Venerables. He also knew some things that even Yu did not know. Saying that, Yi Qingluo didn't hesitate any further as she lifted Serene Yin's spiritual body and rushed towards the direction where Serene Yin's consciousness was about to disappear. It was obvious that it had been suppressed by the magnetic field that had been constructed inexplicably in the surroundings. It was almost unable to maintain its form. He wanted to get information about the Venerable One from Yu. He couldn't wait any longer. Dmo Xian was here. Be it Yuhan or Yu, they wouldn't be able to escape if nothing unexpected happened. All the strength in his body seemed to have been sucked out, and he weakly collapsed on the ground. From time to time, the black robe on his body would scatter and gather together. It was like smoke. Occasionally, the wind would blow. His body would also be blown apart. Gloom wanted to move the body created by his spirit sense. However, he could only watch as his body gradually became transparent. There was nothing he could do. Suddenly Yu heard a series of hurried footsteps. Bringing along with it a majestic profound energy, it pressed forward speedily. The majestic profound energy stirred up a hurricane, almost blew his originally tottering body into scattered sand. Luckily, that hurricane was closing in. Very quickly he retracted his own presence. Chapter 29:12. What entered his eyes was the young lady's fiery dress fluttering, as though it was a phoenix spreading its wings, extremely gorgeous. Gorgeous to the point. His pupils felt a stab of pain. But the next moment, Yin's gaze shifted to Yi Qingluo's hand, on that lump of spirit body. Instantly his eyes glowed slightly, as he raised his last breath in ecstasy. Quick! Quickly let me back into the spirit body. I knew it. You won't bear for me to die. I won't die. Yi Qingluo placed Yin's unconscious spirit body on the ground. Yin immediately wanted to pounce over. But he couldn't exert any strength at all. He was obviously just 3 steps away from his spirit body. But he couldn't touch it at all. Yin's breathing hastened. Bring it over. Come over a little. I want to go back into the spirit body. Go back. He who was in the state of spiritual consciousness. He was simply too weak. As long as he returned to the spirit body, at least he could extend his mental power. However, facing his pleas for help, Yi Qingluo didn't move at all. The young lady's lips curled into a faint smile as she took elegant steps, strolling towards him. That pair of slender legs, past Yu Yin's spirit body, standing in front of him, looking down at him from a high position. The mental power magnetic field here has been suppressed by your other two brothers. Are you sure? You can return to your spirit body? Spiritual consciousness was formed from mental power. Spirit body was originally a spirit body. To be precise, it was a person's soul, which had turned into an entity. This kind of existence originally relied on mental power to be able to communicate with the outside world, to wander in the outside world, just like Old Man's song, and to extract the spiritual consciousness from the spirit body. This was an extremely risky action. The spiritual consciousness would not be able to return to the spirit body within 24 hours. Then the soul would disperse. Moreover, the moment the spirit body was attacked, the spiritual consciousness would also suffer the same damage. Just like earlier, Yu Yin was just about to mention the matter regarding the Venerable. But Yu Han and Yu Nu used Yu Yin's spirit body to stop Yu Yin. Then using some special method, they cut off the mental power magnetic field. Even if Yu Yin's spirit body was placed in front of Yu Yin's spiritual consciousness, probably the Nether Yin could not even return to his spirit body. No, I don't want to die. No, you can't. His gloomy voice was shrill as his eyes suddenly widened as he stared at Yi Qingluo without blinking. Overlord Matriarch, you can help me, you can definitely help me, you can help me, right? All the strength in his body disappeared. His body gradually became incorporeal, like smoke, scattering from time to time. The fear of death caused Yu Yin's expression to become even more fearful. He looked at Yi Qingluo hopefully. Yi Qingluo had a way to help him regain his human form. There must be a way for him to return to his spiritual body. Yi Qingluo crossed her arms and looked at him quietly for a long time before her lips curled into an evil smile. Helping you is only natural after all. We are going to work together. His eyes lit up with joy. But Yi Qingluo changed the topic. Before I help you, you have to tell me what you haven't said first. His dark eyes widened. He stared at Yi Qingluo, as his eyes were filled with viciousness. Yu Yin seemed to have thought of something as the black qi in his eyes almost suffused him. Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes and was about to say something to make Yu Yin lower his guard, not to swallow himself. Chapter 29:13. As he spoke, his body seemed to respond to his words. It gradually became illusory. It was as if it would disappear with the wind at any time. After that, Yu Yin intentionally opened his mouth, as he desperately stretched out his hand towards Yi Qingluo. However, his mouth opened and closed laboriously. However, he did not utter a single sound. Even his expression gradually became ferocious, as if it was very strenuous. His outstretched hand couldn't be raised at all, and it kept turning transparent. He looked as if he had reached his limit. If Yi Qingluo really wanted to get news of the revered sir from Yu Yin's mouth, or perhaps he really needed the Netherworld Corpse controlling technique to achieve his goal, he would definitely not let Yu Yin die just like that. However, when he saw Yu Yin's expression, which seemed as if his soul was about to dissipate, Yu Yin's expression changed. Yi Qingluo was totally unmoved. Instead, she raised her eyebrows and looked at him playfully. Those deep and enchanting eyes seemed to contain endless vortexes and abysses. It was as if he could see through her heart and soul with a single glance. Yu Yin's faintly discernible face stiffened slightly. Yi Qingluo still had no intention to speak. His expression was calm and composed. Finally, Yu Yin, who had come into contact with death and feared death, could not hold it in any longer. His sinister eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qingluo. Right from the start. Right from the start, you had no intention to help me, right? Ever since Yi Qingluo saw that his soul was about to dissipate, she remained indifferent and only cared about inquiring about the identity of the revered sir. Yu Yin had already guessed this. However, he was still unwilling to believe it. He couldn't believe it either. That was why he pretended to be unable to hold on, to test Yi Qing Luo. Unexpectedly, Yu Yin's heart sank, and his voice trembled. Mistress of the Imperial Palace, save me, save me. I'll tell you everything about the Venerable. I'll tell you everything. When he said this sentence, his voice sounded like it was about to stop. The entire black robe transformed into a transparent gas. If you want me to save you, shouldn't you show me some sincerity? Yi Qing Luo tilted her head and smiled evilly. Yu Yin's pupils constricted, and he took a deep breath in pain and anger. Save me, save me. Yi Qing Luo looked at him fixedly. Suddenly he smiled. She knew that Yu Yin had already seen through her thoughts. No matter how she asked, Yu Yin would definitely not tell her what he knew, because this was his last bargaining chip. Might as well. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to continue pretending as she gave a low laugh. To tell the truth, I don't know how to let you return to your spiritual body. Even if you beg me, it's of no use. Yu Yin's pupils turned black. Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo smiled as her eyes squinted. You want to live on so much, and I'm such a gentle and kind person. How could I bear to shatter your fantasy? Yu Yin was so infuriated by Yi Qing Luo's shamelessness that he kept coughing. Every cough, his transparent body floated in the air like a wisp of smoke. Don't be angry. Once you get angry, your soul might really fly away and scatter. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head, her eyes filled with ridicule. You don't have a way to help me recover my human body. You don't have a way, do you? The darkness in the depths of his dark eyes grew more and more intense. That ball of black qi lingered around his body. Staring at that ball of black qi on Yu Yin's body, Yi Qing Luo vaguely felt that her wrist had a trace of imperceptible scorching sensation. The azure dew bracelet had a reaction. Then, could she also contact Old Man Song? Yi Qing Luo immediately pressed her hand on the azure dew bracelet and called out to Old Man Song. Chapter 29:14. She couldn't contact Old Man Song. This meant that the mental energy magnetic field here was still suppressed. But why would the azure dew bracelet react? Yi Qing Luo's fingertips gently stroked her arm, the cherry blossom pattern that looked like a birthmark. His line of sight suddenly landed on Yu Yin's eyes, which had black edges and was engulfed in black energy. In her mind, what Old Man Song said earlier appeared. Extract mental energy, refine weapons, then you can deal with the undead puppets created by Yu Yin. Mental energy. Yu Yin was able to attract the attention of the revered, and use his spiritual form to create undead puppets, and use Yin Qi to control people's hearts. To be able to do this, his mental energy must have exceeded ordinary people by hundreds of times. Now Yu Yin's spiritual form and consciousness were in the same space. Even if the surrounding magnetic field of mental energy was suppressed, Yu Yin's strong mental energy would still produce some slight fluctuations. And this fluctuation, when Yu Yin was angered by her to the point that her aura exploded and her rage value skyrocketed, the fluctuations caused were even more obvious. In other words, if she let Yu Yin's mental energy reach its peak, break through the mental energy magnetic field here, then immediately let Old Man Song help to extract Yu Yin's mental energy. In this way, not only could she use Yu Yin to break the mental energy magnetic field, she could also extract Yu Yin's maximum mental energy. This would be of great benefit to using this mental energy to create weapons in the future. Why don't you know the way to restore your human body, but know so much about the spiritual form? I am not willing. A sharp curse came out from Yu Yin's mouth. If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo's words, he wouldn't have been fooled so thoroughly by Yi Qing Luo. He really couldn't understand, how could a mere 15-year-old Yi Qing Luo know so much about the spiritual form? The overlord wouldn't talk to her about this topic for no reason. Yi Qing Luo returned from her thoughts, hearing Yu Yin's words, her pink lips curved, because she paused and leaned down. Yu Yin's eyes widened, trying hard to hear the reason. But he saw Yi Qing Luo looking at him, using her lips slowly and silently said, "You're stupid." Swoosh. The black qi in Yu Yin's eyes suddenly moved. Yi Qing Luo could feel that the azure dew bracelet's heat was gradually rising in temperature. The reaction became even stronger. This also meant that her guess was correct. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. The smile on the corners of her lips added a few hints of ridicule. Yuin, I'm afraid you've gone crazy thinking of becoming a human. Trying anything in a desperate situation? She narrowed her eyes and her voice became even more provocative. You're right. From the beginning, I just wanted to find out what I wanted to know from your mouth. Swoosh. The black aura grew thicker. Do you want to know why I know about spirit bodies, and why I can really pull you back from the brink of death when you are seriously injured? Yiqing Luo's smile was brilliant like a blooming gorgeous flower. She smiled sweetly, and her fragrance was splendid. That's because I have a spirit body by my side. Yiqing Luo lowered her voice. I asked that spiritual body to transfer a portion of its mental energy to you. And to put it accurately, it means that the soul has possessed the body. Chapter 29:15. Slut. Slut. His gloomy and ruthless eyes were filled with scarlet at this moment. He gritted his teeth and scolded Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo didn't mind much as her slender fingers pressed against her lower jaw, as she squinted at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Think about it, the revered one you mentioned, for your mental power, he forcefully turned you into a spiritual form, to be used by him. Shouldn't you reveal all his secrets to me, so that I can help you take revenge? You dream. Yuin spat out these 3 words through gritted teeth. That intangible spiritual consciousness, at this moment, was completely filled with black qi. Endless black qi, wrapped around Yuin, like a huge black cocoon. Bang. At the edge of the forest, there was an explosive sound. It was as if something had exploded. At the same time, Yiqing Luo felt that there was something flowing in the air. Immediately, Old Man Song's familiar voice sounded in her mind. The mental power magnetic field was actually cut off. Luo girl, you have some ability. Old Man Song, now is the time when his mental power is at its strongest. Take the opportunity to extract his mental power. Yiqing Luo didn't have time to explain so much to Old Man Song. Old Man Song reacted and knew the reason why the mental power magnetic field was cut off was related to Yuin. Its spirit body swiftly drilled out of the azure dew bracelet and charged towards the ball of nether-een that resembled a silkworm chrysalis. Endless black qi instantly enveloped Old Man Song's spiritual body. Yiqing Luo took 2 quick steps forward, but she was forced back by that black qi. She clenched her fingers and stared at Old Man Song's direction. Her heart felt like it was being fiercely strangled, extremely nervous. This was the first time Old Man Song came out of the azure dew bracelet and fought alone. What was Old Man Song's strength? She wasn't clear. Only worried. Old Man Song hadn't used his skills for almost 1,000 years. If there was a slight negligence, it was very likely to give Yuin a chance to counterattack. In the air, the rolling black qi continued to deepen. The whirlpool waves rolled. Half a stick of incense had passed, and there was no response from Old Man Song. Yiqing Luo's heart became more anxious. His tightly clenched fingers moved to his wrist bit by bit. She pressed down on the azure dew bracelet, her eyes filled with anxiety. He wanted to rush forward several times. They would all be repelled by that powerful mental power. The time it took for an incense stick to burn passed. The black cocoon's aura showed no signs of diminishing. As for Old Man Song, he was still unable to obtain his response. Even the connection between him and Old Man Song was completely severed. This made Yiqing Luo's heart even more restless. Just as Yiqing Luo was filled with worry, her eyes were flustered as she stared at the black qi in front of her. An arm encircled her delicate body. In an extremely domineering manner, he pressed her into his arms. The fragrance of sandalwood wafted over. Yiqing Luo seemed to have found her backbone as she speedily turned around and grabbed the man's collar with her tightly clenched hands. Dmo Xian lowered his gaze. Her thick and long eyelashes cast an arc of shadow. His gaze landed on the 2 fair fingers in front of his chest. His fingers had obvious traces of pinching flesh with his nails. His fingertips were still pale. He frowned, his tone displeased. Why don't I see you so worried about me? Xian. Yiqing Luo's voice was flustered. Look over there, Old Man Song is helping me extract Yuin Yin's mental power, You say, will there be an accident? Old Man Song. Chapter 29:16. He raised his eyes and looked at the place where the black gas was swirling. Spiritual body. Dmo Xian lowered his head again and lifted Yi Qingluo's chin as he sneered. You are this lord's woman. You have the time to worry about a spiritual body but not this lord? Yi Qingluo wasn't in the mood to joke around with Dmo Xian. She held on to Dmo Xian's hand which was supporting her chin. You Han and you Nu are not your match, I believe you. But Old Man Song is different. What's different? Dmo Xian didn't wait for her to finish her words as he squinted his peach blossom eyes and swept a biting cold glance at Yi Qingluo's hand which was intertwined with his as his voice turned even colder. Earlier, you were smiling at that spiritual body, right? Yi Qingluo was slightly dazed by Dmo Xian's unreasonable rage. Dmo Xian noticed that she was in a daze. That was a tacit agreement. Her smile just now was indeed directed at the spiritual body called Old Man Song. There seemed to be something heavy pressing down on his heart. It made him feel extremely annoyed. Especially in his mind, the image of Yi Qingluo's gentle smile surfaced. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He pursed his thin lips tightly, not liking this kind of feeling that caused his emotions to fluctuate violently. He waved away Yi Qingluo's little hand which was on the back of his hand. Dmo Xian. Yi Qingluo was already anxious from this push, and she became even more flustered. Now is not the time to make a fuss. Old Man Song isn't any other man, he's an elder that I respect. Not another man? Dmo Xian's eyes drooped as he muttered these few words, totally not caring about Yi Qingluo's last sentence. Elder? So what if they were elders? Isn't the elder a man? Now it was respect. He didn't know what kind of feelings they would have in the future. The more Dmo Xian thought about it, the more vexed he felt. He suppressed the restlessness in his heart and turned to leave. However, after taking a few steps, the girl behind him didn't catch up to him with a good temper like before, acting cute and coquettish. In this way, Dmo Xian's heart was even more upset. The current Dmo Xian. He felt very conflicted. Because of Yi Qingluo's indifference towards him and the importance she placed on other men, he wanted to wash his hands and leave. And because Yi Qingluo didn't chase after him or ask him to stay, he was sulking. Most importantly, when Yi Qingluo looked at him earlier, her eyes were filled with anxiety and worry, as though she was about to cry. Even if he wanted to leave, he couldn't move his feet. His heart was tangled and conflicted. This made Dmo Xian extremely vexed. How could he have such troublesome emotions? Why would he fall for that young lady called Yi Qingluo? Why did he have a special liking for her? His mind was filled with chaotic thoughts, and it made him even more frustrated. Why wasn't that woman chasing after him yet? At least give him a way out. Dmo Xian was filled with a bellyful of displeasure as he simply turned around and rushed towards the direction of the young lady. The girl raised her head and stared unblinkingly at the floating black cocoon in front of her. Countless wisps of black smoke were still swirling around the chrysalis. The young girl tightly grasped the lapel in front of her chest. Her pair of charming eyes, which were usually filled with quick-wittedness and craftiness, now faintly floated with a watery glint, as if there was no hope left in them. Her worried feet kept pacing around. Occasionally, she even walked towards that ball of black smoke. A powerful mental power blocked her footsteps. A sharp glint flashed past the young lady's eyes. Chapter 29:17. Yi Qingluo's right hand's fingers opened up. Immediately, the other hand quickly stroked one of her right hand's fingers. A crimson jade ring appeared on her fingertip. The ring glowed with a red lightning-like light. One look and you knew it was not an ordinary item. Dmo Xian squinted his peach blossom eyes as he stared carefully at that ring. He discovered that there were ancient patterns and totems flashing on the ring under the flowing light. Divine relic. Was that an ancient divine relic? Dmo Xian only felt that the ring was extremely familiar, but he couldn't recall it. Where on earth had he seen this ring before? Seeing Yi Qingluo releasing the power of the divine relic, there was a voice shouting in his heart. Stop her! Stop her! Stop who? Stop Yi Qingluo? And at this moment, there was no time for Dmo Xian to ponder further. Just as Yi Qing Luo released the power of the divine relic to meet that obstructing mental power, he had already stepped forward and grabbed Yi Qing Luo's body. The moment Dmo Xian's hand pressed on Yi Qing Luo's body, Yi Qing Luo's surging profound energy was instantly suppressed. This change made Yi Qing Luo's slender brows knitted tightly as she raised her hand and wanted to push the man away. Do you feel that you're tired of living? The man's cold voice was filled with anger and reprimand. Yi Qing Luo's pushing hand froze. She raised her eyes and stared at Dmo Xian. And in his eyes, she saw a trace of sullen coldness. Trying to use the power of the divine relic to forcefully penetrate the mental power. Do you feel that your willpower is very strong and want to test your mental power? Dmo Xian's brows sunk as he reprimanded sternly. Have you ever thought that if you fail to penetrate the mental power, your own mental power will be destroyed? Because of Dmo Xian's inexplicable jealousy, Yi Qing Luo's heart was already very uncomfortable. At this moment, she was reprimanded by Dmo Xian again. Yi Qing Luo bit her lips as she felt wronged. Didn't you feel that I'm fickle and frivolous and don't want to care about me? Why did you come back for? What are you doing? That was like a little girl's demeanor. This made the gloomy feeling in Dmo Xian's heart finally cleared up a little. Dmo Xian clasped her hand tightly and flung her behind him without any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Stay at one side. Yi Qing Luo staggered a few steps. By the time she steadied herself, the man had already leaped into the chrysalis that was shrouded in black gas. She didn't even have time to say a word of warning. Yi Qing Luo gritted her teeth and curled her fingers tightly. This was the reason why Dmo Xian intentionally shook her off. It was so that she wouldn't be able to stabilize herself, so that she wouldn't have the time to stop him and take the chance to take the risk. She did not want Dmo Xian to run into the black gas. He just wanted to know how to help Old Man Song from his mouth. When facing Yuhan and Yu Nu, she was not worried about Dmo Xian. That was because she could more or less guess Yuhan's and Yu Nu's strength. He was also certain that Dmo Xian would not be injured. But it was a mass of black gas. It was a ball of powerful spiritual energy. It was an unknown power. She couldn't get close. She couldn't be sure if Dmo Xian would be safe or not. Looking at that mass of chrysalis that was tumbling faster and faster, Yi Qing Luo's heart felt more and more uneasy and flustered. Earlier, she was only worried about Old Man Song alone. Now she had to worry about the both of them. Yi Qing Luo's heart was tightly clenched into a ball. Chapter 29:18. Another half a stick of incense had passed. The raging black qi was still rolling like a tide, with no signs of diminishing. Yi Qing Luo's hands were clenched into fists, almost bleeding. That pair of charming eyes didn't even dare to blink. Xian had already put himself in danger. What? There was still no movement? What on earth was going on? Xian and Old Man Song didn't have any response. And this black qi was still raging more and more violently. Could it be that something had happened to them? The mental energy that was released by this gloom. Was it actually a trap? This thought made Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed. Almost without any hesitation, she once again activated the Azure Du Ring's power, preparing to forcefully barge in. Just at this moment, suddenly a gust of hurricane struck, only to see a purple figure flying out. That figure turned a few times and stabilized his figure in midair. When Yi Qing Luo saw that person, her charming eyes were immediately filled with joy. Her feet moved quickly, jogging into the man's arms. Two hands tightly wrapped around the man's waist. Xian. It was Dmo Xian. He came out. Safely came out from the black qi. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped, looking at the young lady in his arms who took the initiative to hug him. His thin lips couldn't help but curled up, curling into a devilish arc. He emptied one hand, wrapping it around the young lady's soft body. Want to be disobedient again? His low hoarse voice whispered softly in her ear. That handsome face was reflected in the young lady's pupils. Yi Qing Luo subconsciously, her finger which was wearing the Azure Du Ring, shrank back. But her wrist was grabbed by the man. I'm not by your side for a while, and you want to mess around? Dmo Xian raised her hand, raising his brows with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Yiqing Luo's eyes drooped, very obedient. I'm wrong. Dmo Xian's eyes were as deep as the sea. This lord for you has consecutively taken action 3 times today, and you still want to create trouble for this lord for the 4th time, you think. Just 1 sentence will do? She could hear the implied meaning in the man's words. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she obediently followed Dmo Xian's words. Then, according to Overlord's intention, what should we do? It's said that the grace of a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. This lord has helped you 3 times a day, and you're unable to leave this lord at all times. So you should use yourself to repay this lord. Dmo Xian pulled her into his embrace, letting her delicate body to press on top of his. His words made Yiqing Luo's heart pounded. She thought that she had really been poisoned by a kind of poison named Dmo Xian. All the grievances and unhappiness from before. In the man's gentle words, it had all disappeared. This man was really seductive. Under the centrifuge goose mode. To think that he could even say something like wanting her to repay him with her body. It was even more touching than all the words of love. Between Yiqing Luo's brows, there was a warm smile. She buried her head into Dmo Xian's embrace, absorbing the breath from his body, and gave a strong end sound. Since Overlord has such a passionate request, I will reluctantly agree to you, to repay Overlord's great kindness with my body. Leaning against his chest, there was some slight undulation. It was the sound of a man laughing. Her heart moved. She wanted to see the man's genuine joyful smile on this cold and abstinent face. Chapter 29:19. With this movement, Yiqing Luo's line of sight coincidentally met Dmo Xian's side. A helpless and extremely embarrassed face. Yiqing Luo was stunned and froze. Cough, cough, cough. That person covered his mouth and coughed lightly. His transparent body swayed in the wind. Yiqing Luo's face turned red. Song, old man Song, when did you come out? This person was not someone else, it was old man Song. Old man Song's wrinkled face was full of helplessness. I have always been here, it's just that in your eyes is the Overlord. Yiqing Luo. It seemed like, when Dmo Xian came out from the black chi, he seemed to be carrying something in his hand. She was so worried that she didn't notice anything else. She only thought, Dmo Xian came out safely. Old man Song must be fine. She didn't expect Dmo Xian was carrying old man Song. Sight, a grown girl really can't be kept at home. My heart really hurts. Old man Song's spirit body floated up, holding his chest and crying out. Yiqing Luo blushed. I am equally concerned about you and Xian. Old man Song shook his head, indicating that he didn't listen and didn't believe it. This is the old man Song you mentioned? Dmo Xian squinted his peach blossom eyes, sizing up this white-haired old man. With Dmo Xian changing the topic, Yiqing Luo nodded decisively. Yes, he is old man Song, the target of your jealousy. Dmo Xian. It was rare for Dmo Xian's handsome face to show a touch of embarrassment. Old man Song's attention was indeed diverted. Jealousy? Overlord, that kid is jealous of me? Yiqing Luo spread out her hands and complained to old man Song helplessly and fanned the flames. Just because of your smile, his vinegar jar has been overturned. Just because I was worried about you, he got angry and even scolded me. Dmo Xian listened to Yiqing Luo. To be treated as an opponent by the Overlord, this old man is really honored. Old man Song's mouth twitched as he smirked twice. No wonder in that mental power. Dizun gave him a dirty look for no reason. Just look at him. At his age. In his current form. What could they use to compete with Dmo Xian? Dmo Xian was still jealous of him. This jealousy was really scary. There's no other way. I'm too outstanding and he's worried that I'll be snatched away. Amidst the teasing, the heat on Yiqing Luo's face decreased a little, and her skin thickened a little. Dmo Xian narrowed his peach blossom eyes and sneered. Someone dares to snatch it? That cool and arrogant attitude was very domineering. However, there was indeed nothing he could say to refute. Who was so tired of living that he dared to snatch Dizun's woman? Stop fooling around. Yi Qingluo glared at Demo Xian resentfully. This man no matter when. They were all so confident and domineering. Yi Qingluo turned her gaze towards Old Man Song. Have you successfully extracted Yuan's mental power? Old Man Song's expression turned serious, and he didn't tease him anymore. We almost failed. Fortunately, Venerable Sovereign arrived in time. He has already extracted his mental energy and stored it in the Azure Dew bracelet. Heh. A sneer interrupted Old Man Song's seemingly relaxed tone. Dmo Xian glanced sideways at Old Man Song and lightly said, "This old man, in order to extract Yuan's mental power, he almost lost his spiritual body." Venerable Sovereign. Old Man Song's expression turned cold as he emphasized his tone. Chapter 29-20. Little Luo, don't listen to this brat's nonsense. Old Man Sung laughed dryly. It's not as serious as he said. Well, it's not serious. A certain Venerable Sovereign answered, but I was almost devoured by his mind power. Old Man Sung wanted to stop him and retort. In the end, he just opened his mouth and lowered his head. Old Man Song. Yi Qingluo's heart tightened when she heard Dmo Xian's words. Why do you have to force yourself? Have you ever thought about what I would do if you were to suffer a backlash from the Nether-Een mental energy? Little girl Luo. Old Man Song pursed his lips, but he didn't know what to say. Yi Qingluo's chest was in turmoil. She was worried about Old Man Song, and at this moment, she was anxious and worried. She clenched her fingers. She knew. The reason why Old Man Song took such a risk was because of her. Under the situation where the Serene Een could not return to his spirit body, Yuan would definitely die. If he wanted to easily deal with the corpse puppets that Dark Palace created in the future, now was the only chance. If Yuan was dead, he would not be able to extract Yuan's mental strength. Old Man Song took this risk for her sake. If something really happened to Old Man Song, then Yi Qingluo didn't even dare to imagine the scene of Old Man Song getting into trouble. Suddenly, he felt a surge of warmth in his tightly clenched fists. The man's broad palm covered her small hand. His nimble and slender fingers easily pried open her tightly clenched hands. His strong and muscular arm was also placed across Yi Qingluo's waist. The man's husky and magnetic voice rang out. It's all in the past. The elegant sandalwood scent from the man's body made Yi Qingluo's flustered and frightened heart gradually calm down. His 5 fingers also slowly loosened. He knows how important he is to you. There won't be a next time. Dmo Xian comforted her in a low voice, holding her hand. His slender fair fingers slowly caressed Yi Qingluo's hand. Under the contrast of that fair skin, Yi Qingluo's palm was covered with bloodstains from her fingernails. You are very important to him, so don't do anything that will hurt yourself. Dmo Xian gently caressed the fingerprints on her palm. The man's fingers caressed her gently. There were thin calluses on his fingertips. He caressed her skin, bring a kind of ticklish touch. Standing by the side, Old Man Song, who had originally planned to receive Yi Qingluo's love rebuke, saw that Dmo Xian's few words had already extinguished the fire in Yi Qingluo's heart. He was touched and was about to open his mouth to thank Dmo Xian. He knew how to dote on his wife. He was a considerate and respectful man. He was indeed the man that his last Luo had fallen for. However, Old Man Song's heart was filled with gratitude and satisfaction towards Dmo Xian. It had not even fermented in the bottom of his heart. He received a stare from Dmo Xian. Old Man Song was immediately stunned, his face full of confusion. Dmo Xian's gaze turned colder as he narrowed his peach blossom eyes, reflecting a piercingly cold ray. His lips curled into a devilish smile. His thin lips moved and he spat out a few words silently. Get out of here. Obviously, Dmo Xian did not make any sound at all. However, Old Man Song clearly felt that overwhelming aura pressing down on him. Old Man Song shrunk his neck. He decisively withdrew into the Azure Dew bracelet with a sway of his figure. In Old Man Song's heart, 10,000 alpacas were running wildly. This kid spoke up for him. He was simply in a hurry to drive away this third wheel. It turned out that he was jealous again. He just didn't want Luo to talk to him more. Was this really the overlord who was poisoned by the centrifugal worm? Chapter 29-21. Oh right. Yi Qingluo, who was lying in Dmo Xian's arms, suddenly raised her head. Her vision swept around the surroundings and ascertained that this time round, it wasn't because she only had Dmo Xian in her eyes and neglected the others. Where's Yuhan and you knew? Yi Qingluo could distinctly feel that when she asked this question, her expression changed. The arm across his waist tightened a little. She slowly shifted her gaze onto Dmo Xian's face. The man pursed his lips, and an unnatural expression flashed across his face. A red light flashed in his eyes. Yi Qingluo blinked her eyes. Those two people ran away? Dmo Xian's expression was obviously awkward. Yi Qingluo was shocked. Those two people actually escaped from your hands? Yi Qingluo expressed that she absolutely didn't believe that Yuhan and Yu had such ability. He was agitated by Yi Qingluo's two consecutive shocking sentences. The red glint in Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes turned incomparably tyrannical. He tightened his arms and pulled the girl into his embrace. A pair of obsidian eyes, like a coquettish mandala, emitted a bewitching charm. Even Yi Qingluo. They were all captivated by his demonic charm. Don't look down on me. The man's low and domineering voice carried a hint of threat. He bent down and touched his nose to hers. His eyes, which were as deep as the sea, locked onto her. His breath was too close. Yi Qingluo felt her face heating up and wanted to take a few steps back. However, the man's strong arms were tightly wrapped around her delicate body. Her eyelashes fluttered. If you can't catch them this time, there will be a next time. I didn't underestimate you. You think that this lord intentionally let them escape? Dmo Xian narrowed his eyes. That's not what I meant. Yi Qingluo didn't understand why Dmo Xian was so concerned about this matter. I know you didn't do it on purpose. Then you feel that this lord is not a match for the both of them, so they managed to escape, right? Dmo Xian scoffed coldly. Yi Qingluo. God, this man was just poisoned by the centrifugal goo and forgot about her. Why did it feel like his intelligence was also swallowed by the centrifugal goo? So what if Yuhan and Yu ran away? She didn't say anything. He was just shocked and astonished. Why did she feel that Dmo Xian's reaction was even bigger than hers? Suddenly, Yi Qingluo's mind spun as her eyes sparkled brilliantly. She blinked her charming eyes as she raised her head and stared at Dmo Xian's good-looking face. This man, could it be that? Do you feel guilty? Because he had promised her that he would capture Yuhan and Yu alive. But in the end he failed to do so. He even let Yuhan and Yu escape. Not only did it damage his dignity as a man in front of her, but it also damaged his bearing as a venerable sovereign. Men were not willing to let their women see their battered and exhausted side. Although Dmo Xian would not be so embarrassed. But standing in his position, two ants that could have been easily squashed to death had run away, and it was in front of his woman. More or less he would feel embarrassed. Therefore Dmo Xian was bewildered. What are you looking at? Being stared at by Yi Qingluo's dazzling eyes for a while, Dmo Xian's brows creased slightly as he raised his hand and turned her face to one side. Yi Qingluo's little head arched and refused to shift her gaze away. Her pair of charming eyes were curved as she smiled. I'm looking at you. Dmo Xian was praised, but he didn't feel happy at all. Instead his brows creased tightly, just as he was about to open his mouth. Chapter 29-22. Dmo Xian frowned. His body's instincts had already driven him to bend down following the young lady's strength. The young lady's pink lips pressed against his. The warm touch was accompanied by a young lady's unique sweet fragrance. Like a warm current, it flowed directly into the depths of his soul. Dmo Xian's body shook violently, just as he was about to clasp the delicate softness in his arms, turning from guest to host. The young lady moved her lips away, her slender fingers grabbed the man's robe, her face was filled with smiles. This is your reward. The young lady's smile was a little devilish. Her curved eyes revealed a sense of craftiness and quick-wittedness. Dmo Xian's pupils flickered. He raised his hand to hold the wrist in front of his chest, which was so slender that if he used a little strength, he would be able to break it. He lowered his eyes, his fine black hair scattered on his handsome face. His thin lips rose as though he was smiling. Reward. My dear Xian is so awesome, of course I have to give you a reward. Yi Qingluo was still circling his neck, smiling as she nodded. Awesome? He repeated again, his thin lips deepened, revealing his clean white teeth. No matter how she looked, there was a sense of danger. As expected. The next moment he had already bent down, his thin lips on her earlobe. His voice was low and husky, extremely charming. Which aspect are you referring to? Awesome? Yi Qingluo's face swooshed, flushed red. She buried her head on his shoulder, not wanting to look at him. This man really couldn't be flirted. This flirting, his flirting skills were top-notch. She admitted defeat. Diemo Xian gave a low laugh, lowering his eyes to stare at the person in his arms. The young lady's soft touch and the sweet fragrance were all scorching his body. This reaction, as a man he naturally understood. Diemo Xian's deep eyes narrowed, averted his gaze, and as though to change the topic, he took the initiative to mention what happened earlier. Those two used the interspatial scroll to escape. Yi Qingluo, who was still unable to control the rising temperature on her face, arched her head and snorted, not really understanding what Diemo Xian said. They came prepared. Their only goal was to kill Yuan and stop him from betraying the Venerable. Diemo Xian raised his hand and pinched Yi Qingluo's cheeks. They used a spatial scroll to carry out spatial teleportation, and came to this stretch of forest, attempting to extract all of Serene Yin's spiritual body and consciousness, and bring it back to the Palace of Darkness. Yi Qing raised his head. Space scroll. The space scroll is a very risky teleportation technique. Firstly, it requires a space scroll as a magic tool. Secondly, he needed a medium to teleport. As long as these 2 points are met, you can travel through any space at will. Diemo Xian explained. They used the space scroll to travel freely in the Miao tribe. This was also the reason why Diemo Xian was unable to capture the cold ghost maiden alive. Those two people, while Diemo Xian was sending Yi Qingluo off towards the direction of Yuan. Then he activated the space scroll and escaped. Yi Qingluo was already used to the various kinds of strange armaments which appeared in the hands of those Yu. What she was more curious about was, they also wanted to extract Serene Yin's mental power. The Venerable that they mentioned had spent so much effort to nurture such a strong mental power chess piece like Serene Yin. So naturally he wouldn't be willing to part with this power. Diemo Xian nodded. No wonder Yu Han and Yu Nu would bring Serene Yin's spiritual body to the Miao tribe. Now that they have lost Serene Yin, they should be looking for the next one to replace Serene Yin. Chapter 29-23. I hope so. Yi Qingluo caught his fingers and smiled. If that honorable expert didn't let the Dark Nether Palace or the other Nether spirits come to find trouble, then they could settle the goo poison in their bodies with peace of mind. What she was most worried about was, Miao Ji and Miao Yi found a way to cure Diemo Xian. The people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness would take the opportunity to disturb them. However, from the looks of it, the secluded Darkness Palace did not dare to touch her for the time being. The incident today was caused by Yuan manipulating Miao Rongrong and stirring up trouble in the Miao tribe. Apart from the intentions on the surface, in reality, it was also a test. To test the relationship between Yi Qingluo and Miao Yi. He was also probing if Diemo Xian had really been poisoned by the parasite. Today, due to a freak combination of factors, Diemo Xian had helped her. Moreover, he said that he was not controlled by any goo worm. Yu Ji would definitely tell this news to the person behind the scenes of the Dark Nether Palace, and that sovereign. The reason why they only knew how to play tricks in the dark was simple. Firstly, it was because they were afraid of being discovered by the peace messengers of the upper realm. Secondly, it was because he feared Diemo Xian. As long as Diemo Xian showed no signs of being poisoned, those people would definitely not dare to act rashly. In Yi Qingluo's heart, she could roughly deduce what the secluded palace or that revered would do in the future. Suddenly, she thought of something and raised her head. He raised his head. Coincidentally, The man ignored her because she was deep in thought for a long time, and was about to bend down to tease her. The girl suddenly raised her head. Her eyes met his handsome face. Yi Qingluo's warm pink lips imprinted on Dmo Xian's lower jaw. You threw yourself at me? Dmo Xian raised his eyebrows. The corners of his lips curled upwards in delight. Yi Qingluo immediately moved her lips away. That. Misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Dmo Xian's gaze deepened. Did you misunderstand that you took the initiative to throw yourself into my arms? Or misunderstood that you wanted to forcefully kiss me? Or misunderstood that you wanted to pounce on me? Yi Qingluo. She clenched her fists in shame. How could she be so coincidental? Just about to kiss him? Moreover, listening to Dmo Xian's words. On the contrary, she felt that the accident just now was deliberately planned by him. It was all for the sake of teasing her. Yi Qingluo took a deep breath. She couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with Dmo Xian about this so-called misunderstanding. I want to ask you, do you already know that you have been poisoned by the venomous worm? The corner of Dmo Xian's lips curled up into a teasing smile, as he slightly restrained himself. His eyes flashed, and his handsome face also became indifferent. And, did Miaoji tell you? Other than Miaoji, Yi Qingluo couldn't think of anyone else. Dmo Xian nodded. Yi Qingluo pursed her pink lips. Her nostrils were filled with the man's scent, as though it had seeped into her skin, wrapping around her everything. Because I know, so I'm certain that I'm your woman. Yi Qingluo raised her head, her charming eyes staring at his face. This is the reason why you took action for me. No wonder, right from the start, she felt that the current Dmo Xian was somewhat different. He clearly didn't remember her. But it happened again and again, just like before. He protected her, comforted her, and said incomparably touching words of love. Because he knew he was poisoned by the centrifugal goo. He knew that he had forgotten, that he had loved her deeply before he was poisoned by the venomous worm. It was guilt, or responsibility, driving him to change? Dmo Xian and the young lady's four eyes met. Chapter 29-24. If I don't feel anything, even if I knew you were once my woman, I wouldn't believe it so easily. The man's deep magnetic voice carried a hint of laughter. His slender fingers caressed her cheek. His fingers were gentle with a slight ticklish feeling, caressing her skin. Although I don't remember you, but I know you are my woman. That warm touch made Yi Qingluo's eyelashes tremble slightly. She raised her eyes, meeting the man's deep as the sea eyes. That gaze became heavier and heavier, like a whirlpool, absorbing her soul. Yi Qingluo's lips finally revealed a smile, both her hands tightly wrapped around the man's waist. You will be able to remember me soon. Dmo Xian's large palm covered the young lady's head, as he gently rubbed, listening to the young lady's agitated and excited voice, so soft that his heart seemed to be numb. His brows became extremely gentle. The corners of his lips curled up into a slight smile. Suddenly, this smile froze on the corners of his lips. That handsome as cast face instantly turned pale, almost to the point of being deathly pale. Even on his forehead, there were bulging green veins. That pair of originally warm peach blossom eyes was now flickering with a bloodthirsty red. The man's body stiffened, attracted Yi Qingluo's attention. She immediately retreated from Dmo Xian's embrace. As she raised her head to look at him, she saw Dmo Xian's face, that green and white face. Big beads of cold sweat rolled down along his forehead. Ah Xian. Ah Xian. Yi Qingluo immediately held on to Dmo Xian in a fluster. What's wrong with you? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Is it the centrifugal parasite acting up? The man opened his mouth, but that pale lips did not spit out a single word. He forcefully waved away Yi Qingluo's support. That pair of slender hands, at this moment, the joints were all green and white. How could Yi Qingluo let this Dmo Xian leave alone? She immediately jogged up. Ah Xian, I'll help you to look for Miaoji, to look for Yi. They have in Guxiang. Looking at Dmo Xian's painful look, Yi Qingluo's heart was in a tearing pain. Before Yi Qingluo could catch up to Dmo Xian, That tall and slender figure that was trying its best to leave suddenly swayed and fell straight down. Xian. Yi Qingluo's footwork moved as she dashed over swiftly. Just as Dmo Xian's head was about to fall onto the ground, he firmly supported him. The man's well-built body fell into her arms just like that. His pale face was devoid of blood. His brows were still tightly knitted, and it was obvious that he was not feeling well. Yi Qingluo's fingers trembled as she gently caressed the man's brows. But her hand just touched the man's skin. The man actually let out a painful groan. Her fingers suddenly froze. Looks like his love for you has deepened and caused the separation. Will Gu's backlash. Old Man Song's voice came. Let Chi-Chi take Dizun to the Saintess yard. Don't touch him for the time being. After a pause, Old Man Song reminded. The smell on your body will also cause the centrifugal goo to attack even more violently. Yi Qingluo's delicate body stiffened. Looking at Dmo Xian, whose face was filled with pain and had lost all blood. Her hands were trembling. At this moment, she didn't even have the right to stay by his side, to hold his hand tightly, to give him warmth. Chapter 29-25. Old Man Song's words made Yi Qingluo's eyelashes slightly wet. She adjusted her emotions and summoned Chi-Chi from the pet space. When she helped Dmo Xian onto Chi-Chi's back and took a few steps away, Dmo Xian's brows were tightly knitted and the veins on his forehead were protruding. His expression finally showed signs of easing. This made Yi Qingluo's heart feel an indescribable feeling. Dmo Xian's reaction towards her was bigger. It showed how much Dmo Xian loved her. Under the circumstances where he had forgotten about her, he still loved her so much. The more he loved her, the stronger the backlash. She had never doubted Dmo Xian's feelings for her. She didn't want to use this method to prove his feelings for her. Looking at Dmo Xian's painful look, but she was unable to stay by his side, to endure this pain with him. Her heart was aching more and more. Sacred Maiden Institute. Yi Qingluo had been here once and remembered the approximate location of the Sacred Maiden Institute. One man and one tiger rushed to the room where Dmo Xian rested when the centrifugal worm acted up. Chi-Chi carefully placed Dmo Xian on the bed. She was just about to leave to look for someone in the Sacred Maiden Pavilion. When she pushed the door open, she saw Miaoji and Miao Yi rushing over. When Miaoji saw Yi Qingluo, the grave expression on her face loosened. I sensed someone entering the Sacred Maiden Institute and guessed that you should be back. Luckily it's really you. Quickly come and take a look, Xian He. The centrifugal worm is backfiring again. Yi Qingluo saw Miaoji and immediately went up, holding Miaoji's hand as she spoke in an anxious tone. Don't be anxious. Miaoji took a look at Miao Yi. Miao Yi stretched out her hand and held Yi Qingluo's hand. Qingluo, we've been rummaging around the Sacred Maiden Pavilion for a long time and found some clues. Don't be anxious. Yi Qingluo's breath froze as she suddenly held Miao Yi's hand. There's some clues? Can it cure the worm? Don't be anxious. Let Aunt take a look at the Overlord's condition first. Miao Yi could feel Yi Qingluo's body trembling. She sighed softly as she stretched out her arm and wrapped it around Yi Qingluo's shoulder. To be able to make the usually calm and composed Yi Qingluo flustered in the face of danger, flustered to such a state. Probably in this world, only the Overlord could make Yi Qingluo behave like this. Yi Qingluo tried hard to calm herself down. She took a deep breath and shuddered as she moved away. Miaoji quickly walked past Yi Qingluo and walked to the bedside. She lifted Dmo Xian's wrist and pushed his sleeve aside. Sure enough, the centrifugal goo has gone berserk. Miaoji's tone was heavy. Yi Qingluo took a deep breath nervously as her body turned soft. She plucked up her courage and turned to look at him. What she saw almost caused her to cry out. On Dmo Xian's wrist, that bloodline which was like a blood vessel, had now become as thick as a vine. Moreover, it was slowly spreading along his wrist to his shoulder. It was a vine. It looked extremely terrifying. It was as if it would explode at any moment. What's going on? He was fine before. When Yi Qingluo saw that completely deformed blood-red vine, the taut string in her brain snapped. Chapter 29-26. Miaoji put down the ignited tranquilizer incense and raised her eyes to look at Yi Qingluo as she apologized. Miss Yi, I've acted on my own, I'm sorry. Yi Qingluo was stunned as her eyes looked at Miaoji in a daze. She knew what Miaoji meant, because Mo Xian had thought deeply about the relationship between them. He had also confirmed the fact that she was his woman. Therefore, for that feeling, that impulse of loving her from the depths of his soul, Mo Xian did not try to escape or find excuses to deceive himself or others. Instead, he directly accepted his feelings towards Yi Qingluo. Naturally, he relaxed his feelings towards Yi Qingluo. Their love was so deep that it caused the centrifugal goo to go berserk. Qingluo, and she is also. Miao Yi saw Yi Qingluo not speaking for a long time, and immediately opened her mouth, wanting to speak up for Miaoji. Coincidentally, Yi Qingluo's eyelashes fluttered as she spoke with a calm expression. I know you can't bear to see me and Xian quarrel, and can't bear to see Xian leave me because of the centrifugal worm. She pursed her lips and said in a hoarse voice, I don't mean to blame you. Miaoji's expression was unprecedentedly heavy. Even if you don't blame me, I still feel very sorry because this isn't the only thing I'm sorry for. Looking at Miaoji's grave expression, Yi Qingluo's fingers trembled slightly. She seemed to have guessed what Miaoji wanted to say. His face, which had been pretending to be calm, now looked a little pale. Miss Yi. Miaoji could tell that Yi Qingluo had already guessed what she was going to say next. She also didn't want to say it at this time. However, there was no way to drag it out any longer. My time in the Nirvana realm is up. In the end, Miaoji still spoke her mind. According to the rules of the Miao tribe, after the new saintess inherits the position, I will immediately ascend to the upper realm. Staying here for one more day is already my limit. Yi Qingluo's tightly curled fingers suddenly opened up. His heart also fiercely thumped. As expected, it was this news. Ever since Miao Yi became the saintess, she knew that Miaoji did not have much time left in the Nirvana realm. He just didn't expect it to be so fast. I promised you that I would do my best to help the Overlord cure the goo. I really want to help the Overlord personally, but Miaoji looked at Yi Qingluo's expression and felt even more guilty. She endured the guilt and continued. If Lord Dizun was only poisoned by one kind of parasite, I would be able to cure Lord Dizun within today. However, Lord Dizun has been poisoned by 2 types of venomous insects. Moreover, the venomous techniques of these 2 venomous insects are performed using the ancient venomous techniques of our ancestors. Moreover, they are 2 types of venomous insects that are incompatible with each other. It will be very troublesome to remove them. Not to mention today, even if you give me another 2 days, I'm afraid I can't guarantee that I can resolve these 2 goo at the same time. These words, to Yi Qingluo, were extremely cruel. But if he were to hide all these and not let Yi Qingluo know, this was even more cruel to Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo had the right to know everything. What you mean is, the parasite in his body. You have no way. Yi Qingluo heard Miaoji's words for a long time before she opened her mouth bitterly. Her voice was a little hoarse, and he could vaguely hear that it was a little nasal. Chapter 29-27. What if one of the venom is first cured, then the second venom? Yi Qingluo recalled what Miaoji said earlier. Miaoji's expression was grave. What I want to tell you is this. These 2 kinds of venom that counter each other, when planted on the same host, there are only 2 ways to cure the venom. Cure 2 venom at the same time, everyone will be happy. The second way is to cure the love venom first, then the centrifugal force venom. She raised her hand and pointed at the blood-red patch on Mo Xian's wrist, which looked like a vine. Perhaps it's because his feelings and love towards you are too deep, so it allowed the love worm in his body to absorb the nourishment from his love, and grew very quickly. If you want to cure one venom separately, then you can only cure the love venom first. Love venom. Yi Qingluo muttered these 2 words as she frowned. You can also cure the love venom first. Why are you hesitating? Is it because there's still some danger? You should be clear about the nurturing of venom. Every venom, from the larvae, will develop the habit of fighting with other venom to survive. Love venom and centrifugal force venom are the same. Moreover, these are two kinds of venom that counter each other. Now the Overlord is safe and sound. Half of the reason is because of the Overlord's power. The other half reason is these two venom, mutually defending each other's territory, accumulating power and waiting for a chance. This is also why the Overlord would be controlled by the venom from time to time. One moment he was poisoned by the love venom and had deep feelings for you. The next moment the centrifugal force venom would act up. Yi Qingluo's pupils contracted when she heard that, as her body slumped down powerlessly. Although he knew that Yi Qingluo should have already guessed the consequences of curing one of the venom, but Miaoji still explained in detail. Once the love venom is cured, the centrifugal force venom in the Overlord's body will completely control the Overlord. Without the obstruction of the love venom, the centrifugal force venom's influence on the Overlord will far exceed what it is now. For example, he is not controlled by the centrifugal force venom, other than forgetting you. But the love from his soul towards you will still make him close to you. But if only the centrifugal force venom is left to control him, there's a possibility that not only will he forget you, he will also kill you personally. By the time Miaoji finished her last sentence, her expression had turned serious. Her eyes were burning as she looked straight into Yi Qingluo's eyes. There's still the worst possibility. The Overlord can't bear to kill you and will go against the centrifugal worm, causing the centrifugal worm to go berserk and directly swallow the Overlord, turning the Overlord into a puppet. Puppet! Yi Qingluo's body stiffened suddenly. Although Lord Dizun is not an ordinary person, and his body is also different from ordinary people, his reaction to being poisoned by the goo is also different from ordinary people. Miaoji looked at her fixedly. But I estimate that the Overlord only has a 20% chance of surviving the backlash of the venomous centrifugal goo. No. This method is too risky. Yi Qingluo shook her head without hesitation. 20% was too low. Moreover, it was just an estimate. Miaoji had an expression of, I knew you wouldn't agree. So this is also the reason why I can't make up my mind to help the Overlord get rid of the curse before I ascend to the upper realm. Other than that, is there no other way? Yi Qingluo asked hoarsely. Chapter 29-28. If you feel that this method is too risky, then you can only let Yi search the Saintess Pavilion alone for a few more days to find a way to cure the two kinds of insect poisons at the same time. It is too risky to resolve the love goo first. Miao Yi, who had been silent all this while, held onto Yi Qingluo's shoulder. Qingluo, I promise you that even if my aunt ascends to the upper realm, I alone will definitely help the Overlord find a way to cure the goo, absolutely. Yi Qingluo's eyelashes drooped. Her tone was filled with unspeakable fear. It's not that I don't believe you, but I'm worried, there's not enough time. The two types of venom in DM Ocean's body switched between different modes from time to time. As time dragged on, she was unable to predict how much damage it would cause to DM Ocean's body. This was one of the reasons. Secondly, she had already stayed in the Northern Wave continent for a long time. In the West continent, Long Yunjian and Tong Ziqing were still waiting for them to bring people back to suppress the poison from the upper realm for Long Yunjian. Jun Qingwu's pearl could only sustain Long Yunjian for 3 months. 3 months had passed. Long Yunjian would die because of the venomous insects of the upper realm. Or would he continue to be influenced by the upper realm's goo worms and attack his own brothers? All of this was unknown. There were still people waiting for her to return to the West continent. Both sides were people who were very important to her. She didn't want to see anything happen to either side. The 3 people in the room were silent, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Suddenly, a hoarse and low voice sounded out indifferently. Do it, release the love parasite. This voice caused the 3 of them to freeze for a moment. Yi Qingluo was the first to regain her senses as she pounced to the bedside and reached out to hold Dmo Xian's hand. Ah Xianyu, you're awake. Her fingers had just touched Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's breathing suddenly turned heavy. His handsome face had turned pale. However, Dmo Xian did not reveal it. Instead, he held her little hand. A noble and elegant smile bloomed from his thin lips, no matter how Diemo Xian tried to conceal it. Yi Qingluo could tell that her touch on him had once again caused the centrifugal force Gu in his body to become agitated. Yi Qingluo pursed her pink lips as she withdrew her hand from Diemo Xian's hand and took a few steps back. They didn't even dare to approach him. Yi Qingluo. Diemo Xian frowned slightly. His voice was slightly weak due to the agitation of the centrifugal worm. Come here. Yi Qingluo didn't move. Don't force yourself, I don't want to see you in so much pain. I told you to come here, so come here. Diemo Xian lifted his eyelids and his long eyelashes formed a silhouette above his eye sockets, making that pair of peach blossom eyes of his added some lustrous luster. Yi Qingluo clenched her fists tightly and shook her head stubbornly with a pale face. Diemo Xian's brows creased even more tightly. He moved his hand as if he wanted to get up, but it also seemed to involve something else, causing his brows to furrow into several wrinkles. He lay back on the bed. Yi Qingluo took a few steps forward, her eyes filled with anxiety. Xian, what's wrong? Where does it hurt? She couldn't imagine. How painful was the erosion and agitation of the centrifugal goo. That was why Diemo Xian, who had always been unperturbed, revealed such an expression? One must know that Diemo Xian was once bleeding all over, and yet his expression didn't change, pretending that nothing had happened and flirted with her. Chapter 29-29. Even before he was poisoned. When he came back from the upper realm, he had internal injuries and his power was greatly reduced. He didn't show any signs of it. But now, because of the pain, his face turned pale. How painful was it to make Diemo Xian's expression change? The minute Yi Qingluo got near, she abruptly halted her footsteps. Don't worry, I'm here. Miao Yi grabbed Yi Qingluo's hand. Before the centrifugal worm stabilizes, don't get close to him. Yi Qingluo's petite body stiffened by the bedside. She blinked hard, suppressing the sourness in her eyes as she stared intently at Diemo Xian. Miao Ji saw that Diemo Xian's expression was getting worse. She frowned and turned back to look at Yi Qingluo. I know the Overlord doesn't like to be touched by others, but under the current situation, I can only choose to be disrespectful to the Overlord. If the Overlord is angry, please help me plead for leniency. Saying that, Miaoji didn't wait for Yi Qingluo's reply. She directly raised her finger and bit it hard. Following that, she raised Diemo Xian's arm and pressed the blood that was oozing out from her fingertip onto that squirming blood-colored vine. Bright red blood instantly spread on Diemo Xian's arm. Miaoji muttered something softly. A ray of light brushed past. That drop of blood merged into the blood-colored vine. Miaoji retracted her hand and wiped the sweat off her forehead. Sacred Lady's blood can temporarily suppress the centrifugal worm for a moment. After the whole house is filled with the poison, if the centrifugal worm is still unable to be stabilized. I have no other way. After Miaoji's drop of blood merged into Diemo Xian's arm, Diemo Xian's tightly knitted brows indeed eased up a little. Aunt Miao, is there really no other way? If you can stay in Nirvana realm for a few more days, will you be able to think of a way? Yi Qingluo's hand pressed against her heart. Her heart felt like it was clenched together, hurting terribly. Miaoji weakly closed her eyes. Staying for a day is the most lenient. If I stay any longer, I'm worried. Heavenly punishment will befall upon the Miao tribe. This was, after all, the Miao tribe's ancestral rule. If she didn't abide by this rule, if the heavenly punishment was only for her, it would be easy to deal with it. What he was afraid of was, the punishment from the heavens would befall on the Miao people. Just one goo poison and one goo poison antidote. Leaning against the headboard, the man who had calmed down spoke again. That cold voice was impossible to ignore. She could no longer ignore what he had said before. No. Yi Qingluo's voice was tense, her fingers clenched into a fist. This is too risky. Your body is originally in the upper third. Her voice paused, and she stopped herself from saying anything. She bit her lower lip hard, even if she didn't finish her sentence. Diemo Xian understood as well. He was afraid that this girl knew that his body had suffered a serious internal injury when he was in the upper realm. He raised his eyelids and looked at the young girl who was standing by the bed. Her eyes were filled with worry, but she didn't dare to approach him. The girl stood there, clenching her fists tightly. Diemo Xian's brows creased as he recalled that not too long ago in the forest, because she was worried about Old Man Song, her palm had been imprinted with numerous blood scars. Now she was abusing herself again? Didn't she know how to protect her own hand? A girl's hand was very important. Chapter 29:30. Diemo Xian listened to her slightly sobbing voice, and only felt a dense stinging pain assaulting his heart. Immediately following that was the agitation of the centrifugal force goo. He clenched his fists as he endured the discomfort. His gaze met the young lady's slightly reddened eyes and those wet lashes. That trembling feeling in his chest grew stronger. He closed his deep peach blossom eyes, and when he opened them again, it was already piercingly cold. He didn't look at the young lady but looked sideways at Miaoji calmly. After removing the love goo, what will happen to me? And you guys, what do you intend to do? If you successfully remove the love goo, you will immediately be controlled by the centrifugal force goo. Miaoji subconsciously blurted out when she was stared at by Diemo Xian. But there is also a possibility that you still retain your own consciousness. But if you are unable to withstand against the centrifugal force goo, then there is a huge possibility that you will be devoured by the centrifugal force goo. Diemo Xian squinted his peach blossom eyes as he went into deep thoughts. Miaoji looked at Diemo Xian's perfectly handsome side profile. The most important thing is, I only have the time to help you remove the love goo, and following that, the removal of the centrifugal force goo will be controlled by Yi. Which meant, the most difficult part was for Miao Yi to remove the goo. Yi Qingluo's body tensed up. It wasn't that she didn't believe in Miao Yi. Miao Yi's innate talent was right there. But after all, Miao Yi's experience in dealing with goo worms was not as good as Miaoji. Moreover, no matter if it was the centrifugal force goo or the love goo, they were all ancient goo skills passed down by the Miao tribe. Innate talent. Could it really replace experience? Miao Yi. The man suddenly opened his mouth. This name made Miao Yi's emotions tensed up as she instinctively straightened her back and responded in a serious manner. Here. Do you have confidence? Diemo Xian looked at Miao Yi calmly as his eyes were deep, but without any pressure. Miao Yi was stunned as she turned her gaze towards Miaoji. Diemo Xian's attitude was already very obvious. Everything depended on the thoughts of the two of them. Miaoji pondered for a moment and nodded slightly. Ever since I was rummaging through the voodoo manuals about love voodoo and centrifugal voodoo in the Saintess Pavilion, I have been estimating the inference of this method. In fact, from the bottom of my heart, I agree with this method. As she said that, she looked at Yi Qingluo, who was standing stiffly by the side. Her eyes had already turned red, as though she was suppressing her emotions. Miaoji sighed softly. We can't guarantee that we will be able to find such a book in the Saintess Pavilion. After all, in the past 4 years, I have not seen any similar ancient books in the Saintess Pavilion. Although this method of curing the goo is very dangerous, but with Lord Dizun's physique and willpower, perhaps this method is faster and safer. Miao Zhizhi had thought it through before she said what she said. She had to admit that she did have some selfish motives. After all, she was about to ascend to the upper realm. Her only relative remained in the Miao tribe. Although from the looks of it now, Yi Qingluo and Miao Yi's relationship was rather close. However, it was inevitable that there would be other changes due to certain reasons in the future. Before she ascended, she would try her best to cure the overlord of the goo. If she succeeded, then she would be able to leave the Nirvana realm with peace of mind. She was gambling. Gambling on the overlord's power. Gambling on the overlord's mysteriousness and nobility. Gambling on the overlord absolutely not being controlled by a small centrifugal voodoo. Most importantly, Chapter 29:31. I feel, I can do it. Miao Yi's voice rang, filled with infinite determination. She walked towards Yiqing Luo. As her arms wrapped around Yiqing Luo's trembling shoulders, speaking word by word. I also want to do something for you, for the Overlord. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly, as she lowered her head. Her silence seemed to be rejecting Miao Yi, and also seemed to be rejecting the risky idea which they suggested. Miao Yi opened her mouth, as she wanted to say something. But looking at Yiqing Luo's fine hair, that pair of reddened eyes, she shut her mouth as she sighed, as her hands slid down from Yiqing Luo's shoulders. Lil Luo. A low husky sexy voice called out, which made Yiqing Luo's heart tremble. A familiar nickname. That was the nickname which belonged to Dmo Xian alone called. She raised her head abruptly, as her eyes filled with joy. Following that, at the next moment, her face crashed into a thick embrace. Her nostrils were filled with the familiar sandalwood scent. Her face was scorched by the scorching temperature. She could faintly hear the man's heartbeat from his chest. For a moment, the entire room seemed to have quietened down. Yiqing Luo was only in a daze for a moment, as she quickly recalled the centrifugal worm in Dmo Xian's body. As she struggled anxiously, trying to move her body away. She was afraid of too much touch. It would only make Dmo Xian more painful. However, before she could move, a voice suddenly rang out. A large palm was pressed against the back of her head. The man's muscular arm encircled her petite body tightly. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo spoke in a trembling voice. Being hugged too tightly by the man, she didn't dare to struggle too much, worried that it would cause him discomfort. Lil Luo, be good, listen to me. The man's voice was very deep, as though a melodious incantation, making Yiqing Luo's head had a feeling of dizziness. He stuck close to her ear. That cold and aloof face, at this moment, was like the melting of the winter snow, covered with warmth. Believe me and believe them. Yiqing Luo raised her head from his embrace. What she met was the man's deep peach blossom eyes. His thin lips were frivolous, as his slightly pale handsome face revealed a tinge of wickedness. Yiqing Luo looked at his face in a daze. The man had already bent his head and kissed her lips. As their lips touched, his voice drifted into her ears. Lil Luo, I don't want to forget you again. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. Her long, curly eyelashes trembled violently a few times. In her enchanting eyes, a watery light slowly spread. The man's lips parted from hers. On his handsome face, there was an extremely indifferent aura. But the way he looked at her was very warm, just like in the past. However, compared to the past, it lacked that little bit of feeling. I don't want to forget you again. This sentence in Yiqing Luo's heart was like a densely packed large net, enveloping her within. She stared at Dmo Xian's cold face. Sweat was dripping from his forehead. Even if he tried his best to endure it. Knowing Dmo Xian, she could tell. At this moment, Dmo Xian was using all his strength to fight against the centrifugal venom in his body. It was obvious that the closer he was to her, the more he was tempted by her business. The more the centrifugal heart goo would go berserk. But Dmo Xian still used his own warmth to soothe her worries. Yiqing Luo shut her eyes weakly. The corners of her eyes sparkled. When she opened her eyes again, her pink lips moved, as her hoarse voice spat out a word, all right. In the end, she still chose to compromise. Chapter 29:32. After Yiqing Luo spat out this word, she speedily stood up straight and left Dmo Xian's embrace. She stepped back. He turned around and straightened his back. His hands were clenched into fists. The young lady's departure made Dmo Xian's heart empty for a moment. However, the unbearable pain in his body lessened a little. His deep peach blossom eyes stared deeply at the girl's slender back. He could see that the girl's delicate body was trembling under her forbearance. He frowned and deliberately kept his voice calm and a little hoarse. There's not much time. Let's start now. The girl's body stiffened for a moment. Several times, his clenched fists unclenched. He seemed to want to turn his head and stop her. But in the next instant he curled his fingers again. Miao Ji took a look at Yiqing Luo and then looked at Dmo Xian. as she helplessly sighed. She shook her head and walked to the bedside. Indeed, there isn't much time left. If you don't have any questions, I can start at any time. Dmo Xian didn't say a word, but only raised his eyes and looked at Miaoji indifferently. Miaoji understood and nodded. Then let's move to another place first. During the process of curing the curse, we must not allow any accidents or disturbances. As she spoke, she called for Chi-Chi to come over and help. The Saintess Yard is not absolutely safe, and the equipment to cure the goo is not complete. Then where is the safest place? Yiqing Luo heard that and immediately turned around, asking nervously. Miao Ji and Miao Yi carefully helped Dmo Xian onto Chi-Chi's back before answering. Let's go to my room first. In Miao Ji's room, there was a secret passage that only the holy maiden of the Miao tribe knew about. It was a secret room used by generations of saintesses of the Miao tribe to research goo worms. Even the elders of the Miao tribe did not know about this secret chamber. Yiqing Luo could be said to be the first person other than the Miao tribe's saintess who knew about this secret tunnel, and had even walked into this secret tunnel. In the secret tunnel, there were all sorts of tools for dispelling goo and making goo. Miaoji asked Chi-Chi to carry Dmo Xian to the stone bed at the side. Around the stone bed, there were 2 or 3 very thin branches. Above the buds were evenly distributed goo worms that were squirming non-stop. It was black like a grain. These are not harmful goo worms. Miaoji saw that Yiqing Luo's gaze was fixated on those few shoots and opened her mouth to explain. These goo worms can strengthen the overlord's willpower, allowing him to maintain his consciousness. Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. She didn't know much about the goo poison. He could only pin his hopes on Miaoji and Miao Yi. Miao Yi was already quickly fiddling with the tools in the secret room. About the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Miao Yi called out to Miaoji, "Aunt, that's enough." Miaoji nodded slightly and walked towards the stone bed. Yiqing Luo followed closely behind. I don't have much time left. I will do my best to remove the love goo for Lord Dizun within this limited time. Miaoji glanced sideways at Yiqing Luo's direction, her eyes looking at her seriously and solemnly. Her voice was unprecedentedly heavy. After the love goo is taken out, Yi will immediately take over and remove the centrifugal goo. Yiqing Luo's face turned pale. No sound came from her throat. Miao Ji and Miao Yi exchanged glances, knowing that Yiqing Luo's current feelings were extremely complicated. However, time waits for no man. Chapter 29:33. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids. Under her slightly frowning brows, there wasn't a shred of the usual radiance in her eyes, as it seemed extremely dull. Even though they were separated by a distance, Miaoji could feel a gust of cold wind from Yiqing Luo. Miaoji's throat turned dry. Qing Luo. She opened her mouth to call her name instead of Yiqing Luo. This also expressed her attitude. You must succeed. Yiqing Luo slowly moved her lips as she opened her mouth with difficulty. Her voice was hoarse. Miaoji clenched her fists tightly as she gave her a comforting smile. I will. Yiqing Luo stood there. Her beautiful face was calm and composed. Not a hint of emotion could be seen. Under the illumination of the luminous pearl, under the dazzling light, that face looked a little blurry and couldn't be seen clearly. But Miao Ji and Miao Yi could feel the thick pressure from Yiqing Luo. You guys can start, don't bother about me. I'll just stay here and watch. Accompany him. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes, which were filled with worry. Qing Luo, you can't stay in the secret tunnel. Miao Ji shook her head as she looked at her seriously. The love goo's affection target is you. The centrifugal force goo's affection target is also you. If you stay here, it will only cause the goo worm to become agitated. Yiqing Luo suddenly opened her eyes. The person who was lying on the stone bed, receiving the antidote, was the man she only loved. She couldn't give him warm companionship when he was in pain. Now, when he was antidoting the goo, she couldn't even stay by his side. The love goo has been fed by the overlord's love towards you, and it has already grown up in his body. If you stay, your scent and presence is still there. There is a possibility that it will speed up the growth of the love goo. not to mention the reaction of the centrifugal force goo towards you. You must know that the love goo has not moved for so long, allowing the centrifugal force goo to corrode the overlord's body, allowing the overlord to maintain the state of the centrifugal force goo. This is to deplete the centrifugal force goo's energy and annihilate it in one go. Miaoji could tell Yiqing Luo's reluctance as she explained helplessly. Moreover, after I successfully remove the love worm from the overlord's body, the centrifugal force worm will then completely control the overlord. If you are here, with Lord Dizun's willpower, he might not be able to control the centrifugal force goo. If he sees you and wants to kill you. She paused for a moment, and her voice became serious. Not only will His Majesty fail to remove the curse, but you and all of us will most likely be killed by His Majesty. Miaoji said the last two words very slowly, but it was also extremely clear. Is that so? She spoke in a hoarse voice. Her tense body slowly slumped down weakly. She did not say another word. Instead, he turned around and walked toward the door of the secret chamber. Every step he took was like stepping on thorns. The bright light elongated her silhouette. It made her slender figure look extremely lonely. Looking at the figure disappearing at the door, he could feel that desolate and helpless aura. Miaoji and Miao Yi looked at each other again and saw determination and seriousness in each other's eyes. They would definitely try their best, helping the overlord to remove the goo successfully. She walked out of the secret chamber. Yiqing Luo felt as though all the energy in her body had been sucked out as she leaned against the wall and laid limply on the ground. The wall was icy cold. Chapter 29:34. Her head was leaning against the wall, raised high. Her eyes were tightly shut and her long eyelashes trembled from time to time. Her heart was filled with anxiety, uneasiness and heartache. Lin Mingya had always liked to arrange everything in an orderly manner. But this time, she didn't dare to think about it. The result of failing to cure the venom. Her mind was filled with Dmo Xian's peerless face. He smiled at her. His eyes were warm, as if carrying thousands of spring water. Suddenly, something gently tugged at the corner of her clothes. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes. A furry little head was already in her arms. That pure and flawless head was reflected in Yiqing Luo's pupils from a close distance. Chi-Chi. She spoke in a hoarse voice. The little thing in her arms was Chi-Chi, who had turned into a kitten size after carrying Dmo Xian to the stone bed. Chi-Chi's little body curled up in Yiqing Luo's arms, raised its little head and used its soft pink tongue to gently lick Yiqing Luo's cheek. Its furry little head rubbed against Yiqing Luo's face in a flattering manner. The warm touch, made Yiqing Luo's icy cold body, had a trace of warmth. Master, don't worry about the overlord, he is so powerful, he will be fine. Chi-Chi's childish voice seemed to have a healing ability. Yiqing Luo hugged it tightly. Chi-Chi rubbed its head again. Chi-Chi can feel that the overlord loves Master, very very much, more than Chi-Chi loves Master, so the overlord will not be willing to part with Master. He will not let anything happen to himself. The childish words slowly soothed Yiqing Luo's restless and worried heart. Chi-Chi and Yiqing Luo had a blood pact. Naturally, it could clearly feel the change in its master's emotions. Seeing Yiqing Luo's emotions stabilized, Chi-Chi's tone became cheerful. Master must believe in the overlord, just like Chi-Chi believes in Master. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. There seemed to be some emotions surging in her chest. Her pupils shrank slightly as she stared blankly ahead. She seemed to have thought of something, and was immersed in that memory. Believe in Dmo Xian. Believe in the decision he made. She believed that he would not bear to leave her. That was right. The only thing she could do now was to believe, to believe. Chi-Chi will always accompany Master. Chi-Chi saw that Yiqing Luo's eyes had finally regained its spirit, and immediately licked Yiqing Luo's cheek. Yiqing Luo carried Chi-Chi and gently patted its head. I can't stay in the secret room. It will be contaminated with my scent. She stood up and said, I can't be by Ah Xian's side when he's dealing with the goo, but Chi-Chi, you have to protect him for me. Chi-Chi's wagging tail immediately stopped. Among my companions, Shiju's strength is insufficient, and his spiritual wisdom has yet to be unlocked. Qi Yan's temperament is irritable, and he gets angry easily. Only you can protect Xian for me. Yiqing Luo gently rubbed its little head. Between you and me, we can sense each other's dangerous aura, so you stay here to watch over Xian. If anything really happens, I can rush over. Chi-Chi was convinced, and its two furry little ears drooped down helplessly. Yiqing Luo put down Chi-Chi and her vision fell onto the tightly shut door of the secret chamber, staring at it for some time. Chapter 29:35. The blood-red profound phoenix ring looked especially sparkling in her fair hand. Vaguely, one could see that the red jade was flashing with a fiery red glow, as if a phoenix was about to fly away. Master. Chi-Chi's eyes widened. This is a gift from Dizun. This is a token of our love. Yiqing Luo passed the profound phoenix ring to Chi-Chi. This is what he gave me when I first met him. Chi-Chi did not take it. How can Master take off such an important thing? I'm worried about Xian. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and looked at the profound phoenix ring in her palm. Her gaze turned gentle as though she was looking at Dmo Xian through the profound phoenix ring. She pursed her lips and revealed a smile that could not be considered a smile. No one can predict what will happen after the love parasite is taken out. If something unexpected happens, hand the profound phoenix ring to him. As she spoke, she could not help but smile. This is a token of our love. Even if the heart separation goo controls him, he will definitely remember my memories after seeing the profound phoenix ring. This is just a precaution. With the profound phoenix ring, at least, she would be able to understand Dmo Xian's condition at any time. Chi-Chi raised her head and stared at Yiqing Luo for a long time. That pair of sparkling tiger eyes blinked. Finally, it pouted and said in a childish voice, Chi-Chi will protect Master's profound phoenix ring with my life. It opened its mouth and swallowed the profound phoenix ring that looked like a phoenix spreading its wings. Yiqing Luo rubbed its soft fur. I'll leave Xian to you. After Yiqing Luo left the Sacred Maiden Institute, she directly headed towards the courtyard which the Miao tribe had arranged for Yan Xiaoyi and the others. Her mind was filled with Dmo Xian. He had to find something else to distract himself. Just as Yiqing Luo turned the corner, her figure disappeared for about half an incense's time. In a dark corner more than 10 meters away from the Saintess courtyard, a man in Miao costume walked out. That man's strength was obviously not low. In just a few breaths, the man's figure had already disappeared from the Saintess courtyard. It was as if they had never appeared before. In the northwest of the Miao tribe, there was a dignified and luxurious courtyard. The entire courtyard was extremely quiet. There was not the slightest sound or presence of a human. In this strange atmosphere, suddenly, a black figure appeared in the courtyard. That figure quickly turned into a few afterimages, moving quickly within the courtyard with familiarity. Soon, it stopped in a dark room in a secluded corner of the courtyard. With a creak, the door opened. An old man dressed in white Miao attire came face to face with the black shadow. The old man was overjoyed. He immediately turned around and returned to his room. The black shadow followed closely behind. The moment the door closed, the black shadow pressed one hand on his chest, which was the standard Miao tribe etiquette. I've been guarding outside the Sacred Maiden Institute for a full 4 hours, and only saw Yiqing Luo leaving the Sacred Maiden Institute alone, and her mood was obviously downcast. This man was none other than the man who had appeared outside the Saintess courtyard. The man's voice was very serious. I noticed that Yiqing Luo's eyes were slightly red, as if she had cried. After Yiqing Luo left the courtyard, I still haven't seen the Sacred Maiden and the former Sacred Maiden. Chapter 29:36. The elderly man's hand knocked on the table a few times. It's rumored that the Overlord dotes on Yiqing Luo to the core. Yiqing Luo left the Sacred Maiden Institute alone. Did she manage to see the Overlord? The man shook his head. No. The old man's frown deepened. With his other hand, He propped himself up on the chair and stroked his white beard. The saintess, the former saintess, and the supreme god, all three of them disappeared at the same time. The old man muttered something. Suddenly his ruthless eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth curled up into an extremely evil smile. You, now remove the first-class male attendant beside me, and go to the Holy Maiden Institute. Tell them that I have an important matter to discuss with the Holy Maiden. The man bowed his head respectfully. Yes. The man quickly left the room. By the time the man returned to the old man, half an hour had already passed. How is it? The old man asked anxiously. The man said concisely, a first-class male attendant wishes to see the saintess, but he was stopped by the guards of the Saintess Institute. After the Holy Lady's guard went to report, she said that because the Holy Lady had obtained the inheritance of the King of Venomous Worms, she needed to cultivate in seclusion to absorb the power of venomous worms from the King of Venomous Worms, so she would not see her for the time being. Where is the former Holy Maiden? The old man was not angered by Miao Yi's refusal. Instead, a smile appeared on his face. The guard of the saintess said that because the former saintess had just reunited with the saintess had to go into seclusion. The former saintess wanted to take advantage of the final moments before her ascension to accompany the saintess and protect her. Thus, she rejected Elder's request to see her. The old man nodded thoughtfully. Continue to guard the Saint Lady Institute. If you see the Saint Lady, the former Saint Lady, or His Majesty, inform me immediately. Yes. As soon as the man finished speaking, he turned into an afterimage and disappeared from the room. Only the old man was left in the room. The old man's sinister eyes still narrowed slightly. His face was filled with a sinister smile. He seemed to be calculating something. After sitting for a while, the old man's eyes lit up and he slammed the table as if he had confirmed something. Then, he carefully took out a square brocade box from under the table. Looking at the old man's nervous and devout expression, Zhang Xian couldn't help but sigh. He could also guess that the brocade box was extremely important to him. The old man carefully placed the brocade box on the table. His wrinkled and slightly withered hands slowly touched the brocade box. He stared at the brocade box with a hint of madness on his face. Even his body, which was sitting on the chair, was tense and trembling because of his excitement. It was not fear. It was not fear. Instead, it was excitement. He couldn't help but smile crazily. The old man devoutly stared at the brocade box for a long time before he slowly opened it. A black mist-like aura surged out of the brocade box. Vaguely, the black aura dispersed and turned into a palm-sized object that looked like a copper mirror. What happened? It was hoarse and ear-piercing, as if it was an electric sound created using various modern sound effects. In this quiet room, it was extremely strange. When the old man heard that voice, he was both delighted and respectful. It's me, I've made a new discovery, and I want to tell you. Speak. A cold word popped out from the copper mirror. The old man could not wait to repeat what he had said to the man just now in a concise and comprehensive manner. Chapter 2937. There was no response from the copper mirror side. The elderly seemed to be encouraged as he continued to put on an excited performance. Miao Yi doesn't know the Miao tribe's rules. That's understandable. But the former sacred maiden couldn't possibly not understand the importance of the Miao tribe's people to a sacred maiden. Generally speaking, after the new sacred maiden ascends to the position, she should be accompanied by us elders, to let the Miao tribe people know the current sacred maiden's habits. But ever since Miao Yi became the sacred maiden, she directly disappeared with the former sacred maiden. If it wasn't for some necessary reason, the former sacred maiden would absolutely not let Miao Yi take the risk of offending the entire Miao tribe people, disappearing together with Miao Yi. This time the copper mirror finally had some reaction. What? Reason? Previously I wasn't on the Overlord's body, so I guess. The elderly laughed coldly. The copper mirror's black chi suddenly brightened and dimmed, floating and sinking. It was so strange that it made one's scalp go numb. Because of Miao Yi and Yi Qingluo's relationship, Yan Xiaoyi and the others were treated as VIPs by the Miao tribe people. The courtyard where they stayed was located in the best location of the Miao tribe, with beautiful scenery. Qingluo, Yan Xiaoyi and Xiaojin were sitting on the stone bench in the courtyard, chatting about something. The minute they saw Yi Qingluo walking in, Yan Xiaoyi immediately went up to welcome her. Yan Xiaoyi's vision swept a glance behind Yi Qingluo. Where's the overlord? He's not around. Yi Qingluo replied calmly as she walked towards the courtyard. Are the others around? Yan Xiaoyi could tell that Yi Qingluo's mood was down, as she worriedly followed her footsteps. Everyone is resting in the room. Did something happen? The overlord's goo worm in his body. After tonight, I intend to leave the Miao tribe. Yi Qingluo halted her footsteps as she interrupted Yan Xiaoyi's words. She turned around as her lips twitched slightly. If the secluded palace's people are targeting me, if I continue to stay in the Miao tribe, the Miao tribe will be implicated. Secluded palace's side. Are they still stirring up trouble? Yan Xiaoyi recalled that this morning, Yi Qingluo had yet to reach the land of the Gu King as her brows creased tightly. This morning, you were blocked by the people from the Palace of Darkness? Yi Qingluo nodded her head and didn't deny it. Although I don't have any good impression towards the Miao tribe, but after all, the current sacred maiden and tribe leader are all Yi alone. We still need Yi to help Ajahn suppress the Gu poison in his body, so the Miao tribe definitely cannot be destroyed. When Kitty Li and the others heard Yi Qingluo's voice, they hurriedly rushed over. Kitty Li was the first to jump into Yi Qingluo's arms. Sister. Zoemo, who was laughing like a rascal, followed closely behind. Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes and noticed that Zoemo and Kitty Li came out from the same guest room. Wasn't this development a little too fast? She rubbed Kitty Li's fluffy head, raised her eyebrows, and glanced sideways at Zoemo. From Kitty Li's eyes, Zoemo could tell what Yi Qingluo was trying to express as his thin lips curled into a roguish smile as his red phoenix eyes rose. As though it was responding to Yi Qingluo, expressing that he was serious towards Kitty Li. Whereas Kitty Li, who was nestled in Yi Qingluo's arms, was filled with the excitement of meeting her own sister, totally not noticing the undercurrent surging between Yi Qingluo and Zoemo's gazes. Kitty Li's little head raised up, as that young and tender little face was filled with excitement. Sister is leaving the Miao tribe? Kitty Li wants to stay with sister too. Chapter 2938. Yi Qingluo wanted to leave the Miao tribe. The others naturally had to leave together with Yi Qingluo. After a short while, everyone decided on a time. At noon tomorrow, he would bid farewell to the Miao tribe and return to the western continent. Kitty Li scratched the two ears on the top of her head. Big sister, what about brother-in-law Dizun? Isn't Dizun brother-in-law coming with us? He will come back tomorrow and go with us. Yi Qingluo intentionally avoided herself, not thinking about Emotien's matters in detail, only giving a slight smile as she replied. How could the others not see the reluctance in Yi Qingluo's smile? He could roughly guess that it was related to the venom in Emotien's body. Yi Qingluo didn't want to talk about it. Naturally, they wouldn't go out of their way to ask. However, Kitty Li had always been carefree and rarely thought too deeply about things. Kitty Li had only sensed through the contract between her and Yi Qingluo that Yi Qingluo wasn't in a good mood at this moment. So her expression turned bitter, as she hugged Yi Qingluo's waist tightly, speaking out softly. Sister, why does Kitty sense that you're very unhappy? Every time I mention brother-in-law, Dizun, I get upset. Is it because brother-in-law, Dizun? She had yet to finish her words. His body was pulled back by a strong force. Kitty Li's petite body was forcefully pulled away from Yi Qingluo's embrace, falling into another warm embrace. Kitty Li was startled. She raised her claws and was about to scratch the man who was hugging her. Little wild cat, be good. Zoemo was a step ahead of her and held her slender little hand. Kitty Li glared at him. Frivolous man. Can't you see that I'm not happy? Kitty wants to accompany big sister. Your little mouth. Are you being disobedient again? Mo squinted his almond-shaped eyes and placed his slender fingers on Kitty Lee's lips. His gaze was deep and threatening. Kitty Lee's cheeks immediately turned crimson, as if she had thought of something. Even the pair of straight ears on her head drooped down. Mo apparently loved this Kitty Lee very much. His long arms tightened, encircling Kitty Lee even tighter in his embrace. He then glanced sideways, glancing at Yi-Ching Luo from the corner of his eyes. Since you've decided to set off tomorrow, then rest early. It's getting late, and tomorrow we still have to continue on our journey for a few days. Yi-Ching Luo smiled at him. She knew that Mo was trying to change the topic for her, not mentioning Mo Xian. At least for a period of time, she would not think about Mo Xian. If he didn't think about it, he wouldn't keep imagining the scene of Mo Xian curing the goo. She took a deep breath and tried to keep her smile and voice calm. Alright everyone, go and rest. Make sure you're in good spirits so that we can continue our journey tomorrow. Mo carried Kitty Lee, who was still crying out and hadn't had a good time with her sister, back to the room. Yan Xiaoyi took a look at Yi-Ching Luo, her eyes filled with worry. He wanted to open his mouth to persuade Yi-Ching Luo, but he didn't know what to say. All along, Yi-Ching Luo had been their leader. Regardless of the situation, he could remain calm and unruffled. He would never let anything, no matter what, affect his emotions, affect their emotions. It could be said that Yi-Ching Luo had always been a strong young lady who could support everything. But Yan Xiaoyi felt, no matter how strong Yi-Ching Luo's heart was, she was still a lady after all. When Di Zun was not around, as a sister, she should accompany Yi-Ching Luo, and not let Yi-Ching Luo's imagination run wild. But looking at Yi-Ching Luo's forced smile, that pair of dim but pretended to be calm eyes. Chapter 2939. If he accompanied Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo was trying to reassure her. He could only maintain this fake smile, maintaining a calm mask. To Yi-Ching Luo, this would only make her more tired. If he didn't accompany Yi-Ching Luo, he was worried that Yi-Ching Luo would let her imagination run wild and be alone. She accompanied Yi-Ching Luo but was worried that when Yi-Ching Luo faced her, she was still suppressing her own emotions, not willing to let it out. Because he cared. Because he cared. The more worried Yan Xiaoyi was about Yi-Ching Luo, the more considerations she had. You and Jinzi go rest. Yi-Ching Luo felt Yan Xiaoyi's gaze on her, and she had just turned around when she bumped into a pair of worried eyes. Yi-Ching Luo's heart warmed up and her smile also warmed up a little. I should also take a good rest these few days, my emotions have been tense. As she spoke, she yawned and pretended to be sleepy. Yan Xiaoyi frowned and wanted to say something. He was interrupted by Yi-Ching Luo. Alright, I don't want to see everyone tomorrow after we set off, with a drowsy look. Saying that, Yi-Ching Luo didn't give Yan Xiaoyi a chance to reply. He stretched himself and walked towards his room. Ching Luo. Yan Xiaoyi hastened her footsteps and chased up to her. Xiao Jin held her hand. Let's go back. Let her be alone for a while. Later, we'll wait for an opportunity to get some spice to drink with her. Yi-Ching Luo wasn't lying when she said that she was sleepy. It was true exhaustion. Physically and mentally exhausted. However, no matter how tired his body was, he couldn't help it. But she still couldn't close her eyes. Once she closed her eyes, a handsome, godlike face would appear in her mind. She would think of his pale face and furrowed brows as he endured the plot. She would remember his face as he lay unconscious on the stone bed. She could not control her emotions at all. She couldn't help but think of Mo Xian. Under such circumstances, how could she sleep peacefully when she was physically and mentally exhausted? Night gradually fell. There was complete silence in the courtyard. The moonlight was like water, bringing with it a slight chill. The sky was so dark that not even the moonlight could illuminate it. Amidst the silent atmosphere, outside the courtyard, a few burning torches suddenly lit up. The torches closed in quickly. When she arrived outside the courtyard, she saw a white figure rushing into the courtyard. Missy, Missy. That person's voice was not soft. Under this tranquility, it was exceptionally loud and clear. As he called out, That person had already entered the courtyard and was looking around anxiously. However, not a single shadow could be seen. Miss Yi, I have something to ask of you. That person didn't know where Yi Qing Luo's room was, so naturally he didn't dare to barge in as he stood outside the courtyard, calling out loudly, "What's up?" Suddenly, a light voice entered the man's ears. The man was startled and turned around abruptly. On a lush tree, a girl dressed in red was leaning against the tree trunk. Her hair, which was not tied up at all, was draped over her shoulders and cascaded down like a waterfall. There was not a single star in the pitch-black night sky. However, this girl seemed to have gathered all the light. It was so dazzling that it made people raise their eyebrows. She was like a fairy in the night, exuding her endless charm, devilish and enchanting to the extreme. The young lady glanced at the man below lazily. A white jade hand was holding a white jade wine pot, gently swaying it. Chapter 2940. That smile looked bewitching, like a demoness who bewitched people. But on a closer look, one could see the melancholy within. Yi Qing Luo stared at the person below, her brows flirtatious as she raised the wine pot and poured the fine wine into her mouth. She then recalled her lazy voice. "Right, Judge Elder, what's the matter for you to come here in the middle of the night?" The person below wasn't anyone else, it was the right Judge Elder. In the dark night, the young lady's charming eyes were like the stars, resplendent to the extreme. Right Judge Elder was reminded by Yi Qing Luo in this way when he suddenly realized that he had almost been bewitched by a young lass. He shook his head and speedily explained his intention. "Miss Yi, Old Zwa and I have already followed your suggestion and used the Miao Gu seal to seal those 5 secluded palaces guards in the underground tunnel. We also found those Miao tribe guards who carried the secluded palaces guards yesterday." Speaking to this point, his expression obviously turned ugly. Indeed, as what Miss Yi said, those guards are different from usual, and even some Miao tribe guards actually develop rebellious thoughts, offending their superiors. Until now, the right Judge Elder still felt a lingering fear. Those secluded palace guards, after he and Old Zwa asked a few more questions, they directly took action, and every move was extremely vicious, as though they were facing their father's murderer. They recalled what Yi Qing Luo had reminded them previously. If one's heart was greedy and the darkness was too deep, they would easily be corroded by the demonic qi on these puppets, becoming a puppet controlled by the demonic qi. The left and right Judge Elders could no longer doubt the truth of Yi Qing Luo's words. Those Miao tribe guards who had been completely swallowed by the demonic qi, Old Zwa and I, have all killed them. Right Judge Elder's tone was obviously heavy when he said this. "Amen." Yi Qing Luo replied faintly. Right Judge Elder would make such a choice, and it was indeed what an elder should do. After all, by killing a few people, they were protecting the entire Miao tribe. The right elder took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. "Miss Yi, although the remaining guards have not lost their souls, it is obvious that something is wrong. Old Zwa and I acted on our own and locked them up in the woodshed. I came here especially to ask if Miss Yi has a solution? Let these guards who have not been completely corroded by the evil aura return to normal?" Very difficult. Yi Qing Luo lazily leaned her head against the tree branch, as her eyes faintly gazed at the pitch-black sky. "Towards the evil qi on those puppets, I'm currently at a loss of what to do." The right elder's face turned pale, and he clenched his fists. His face was full of struggle. The number of Miao tribesmen was small. Moreover, after being together for so many years, they had developed feelings for each other. If it was possible, the right Judge Elder would try his best to keep these people alive. But if Yi Qing Luo had no other way, for the future of the Miao tribe, he had to harden his heart. This thought caused the right elder's face to turn increasingly pale. "Those are the guards from the Palace of Darkness. What kind of organization is the Palace of Darkness? Why would there be such a strange thing? And it can control people's hearts? Influence people's hearts?" The right elder's face was ashen, as his throat was filled with bitterness. Yi Qing Luo shook the white jade wine flask in her hands. As she heard the sound of a few drops of wine, she tugged her lips lightly. I know instead. It will speed up your Meow tribe's destruction. Chapter 2941. Right Judge Elder sensed that Yiqing Luo's current mood was not right. He suppressed the questions he wanted to ask about the Palace of Gloomy Shadows. Miss Yi, are you drunk? If you drink too much, I'll get your friend to help you back to your room to rest first. As for other matters, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Drunk? Yiqing Luo gave a low laugh as her brows were filled with an indescribable allure. I hope that I'm drunk. Right Judge Elder was slightly stunned. Yiqing Luo had already floated down from the tree branch. Her red dress was like fire, as though she was a blazing spirit that bloomed in the night. The enchanting and resplendent brilliance was extremely bewitching. This look, no matter how one looked at it, she looked as though she was drunk. And she wasn't light. But when the Right Judge Elder saw Yiqing Luo's eyes, he wasn't able to determine if she was really drunk. That pair of charming eyes, although it was tainted with a trace of haziness, floating and sinking. But she was sober and calm. It was totally not the expression a drunk person should have. Right Judge Elder's words were stuck in his throat. Heh. Another languid laughter came out from the young lady's mouth. She lazily curled her pink lips, with a hint of ridicule in her smile. Looks like I've been thinking of ways and means not to implicate the Meow tribe, in the end. The Meow tribe is still implicated. Yi, Miss Yi? Right Judge Elder was puzzled. He was already confused by Yiqing Luo's mood today. Now hearing Yiqing Luo's baffling words, he was even more confused. Right Judge Elder, if you really want to thank me, then help me guard the Sacred Maiden Institute. Perhaps, later on, I will be able to remember how to help those guards who are tainted with evil qi to clear the evil qi in their bodies. Perhaps that might be the case. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. Her voice was melodious, like pearls falling on a plate. Right Judge Elder's white brows creased into a bundle. He still hadn't understood what Yiqing Luo's baffling words meant. Just at this moment, under the night sky, the extremely quiet Meow tribe suddenly exploded into a clamor. Immediately following that, the Meow tribe which was enveloped in the night sky was lit up brightly. The fire torches rippled along with the wind, flickering rays of light. Hearing the sudden clamor outside, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. Right Judge Elder was stunned again. He raised his head and looked towards the horizon. Those bright torches' rays had dyed half the sky red. You're just in time. Quick run. An anxious voice was heard. Following that, a figure was seen rushing over from the dark corner of the courtyard. Apparently, he had snuck into this courtyard secretly. Old Zwa, what happened? As soon as the Right Judge Elder saw him, he immediately went forward to support the hurried figure. Left Judge Elder waved his hand while panting heavily, as his eyes looked anxiously at Yiqing Luo. Miss Yi, follow me and leave from the Meow tribe's rear mountain. Although that road is a bit remote, it is absolutely safe. Back of the mountain? The elder on the right frowned when he heard this. What's going on? Right Judge Elder said hurriedly in Qing. Yi was Qing said Mr. Elder. Was Mr. the right Mr. said. The elder was in. The judging elder said hurriedly with an anxious look on his face. Miss Yi, there's no time. Let's talk as we walk. Yeah, it's too late. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a smile as she gazed towards the sky which was dyed red. Since the people from Secluded Darkness Palace are here, they will not let go of any chance. No matter which path we take, it's too late. Most importantly, Dia Moxian was still in the Holy Maiden Institute. Chapter 2942. Elder's was face darkened. No. Miss Yi, why don't you go to the Saintess Yard to hide? I don't believe that those people from the Palace of Darkness would dare to barge into our Meow tribe. Secluded Darkness Palace even dared to provoke the Imperial Palace. Why would they be afraid of a Meow tribe? Yiqing Luo shook her head. Their target is me. Could it be, just because you noticed that the guards of the Palace of Darkness are actually all corpses? The secret of being able to infect evil energy? The elder on the right clenched his fists angrily, because of the puppets from the Palace of Darkness and the infected Meow Guards. The two judging elders had been extremely dissatisfied with the Palace of Darkness for a long time. Yi Qingluo smiled but didn't reply. The reason why the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was against her, even she herself didn't know. Perhaps the dark forces had an irreconcilable grudge against her. Or it could be that the Nether Palace wanted to deal with Dmo Xian, and she was Dmo Xian's woman. Or perhaps there were many possibilities. However, Abyss Palace's true goal was to wait until he would only know when the person behind the scenes of the Gloomy Palace appeared. Why is it suddenly so noisy? What happened? Yan Xiaoyi and the rest walked out of their rooms. Yi Qingluo looked at those people who were walking over. Their hair was not messy. His clothes were neat and tidy without any creases. However, these clothes were the same clothes which Yi Qingluo wore not long ago when she came to the courtyard to discuss with them about leaving the Miao tribe. That was to say, she sent her brothers back to their rooms to rest. None of them could rest in peace. They were all worried about her. Yi Qingluo's heart warmed. Qingluo, why are there so many torches outside? What kind of Miao ritual is this? Yan Xiaoyi looked at the sky that was dyed red, and then looked outside the perimeter wall, at the red glow that enveloped everything. Kitty seems to have smelled something weird. It stinks. Kitty Lee wrinkled her nose and covered it with her hand. Zhou Mo tightened his arms around her shoulders and frowned as he looked at the sky through the high walls. The expression on his face was no longer as frivolous as before. Instead, there was a hint of solemnity. What's going on? Such a big thing happened in the Miao tribe and I didn't receive any news? As Taozi spoke, she took out the important information that Bapti had given her from her bosom and kept rummaging through it. But no matter how he searched, he could not find a single piece of information related to the Miao tribe. Gui Wu, who was walking at the back, had a solemn and cold expression on his face as he exchanged glances with Zhou Mo. Although Gui Wu did not say anything, his expression had already revealed the seriousness of the matter. Both he and Zhou Mo had grim expressions on their faces. After some time, Gui Wu slowly shifted his line of sight onto Yi Qingluo. As he opened his mouth coldly, a very strong aura. Yeah. Yi Qingluo naturally sensed the majestic overbearing aura outside the Miao tribe. Where's the formidable opponent? I'm afraid it's going to be difficult to deal with. Miss Yi, I think you should follow me to the back of the mountain. Even if there are people guarding the back mountain, we can still fight our way out with our strength. Elder Zhua immediately voiced out his opinion after hearing their words. To have such a strong presence, she obviously came prepared, and will definitely not give me a chance to leave. Yi Qingluo squinted her eyes, as the cold glint reflected out was a little biting cold. Chapter 2943. The elders on the left and right looked at each other and their faces turned pale. Miss Yi, you mean there is a spy from the Palace of Darkness in the Miao tribe? Yi Qingluo smiled without saying a word. But this smile also tacitly agreed with their guesses. Indeed, if it wasn't for an insider, why would the people of the Dark Secluded Palace choose this time to lead the Dark Secluded Palace to surround the Miao tribe? The new Saintess was not present. The former Saintess wasn't here either. The two pillars of support were gone. The people of Gloomy Palace easily incited the people of the Miao tribe. At that time, she would not only have to deal with the people from the Palace of Darkness. He still had to split himself to guard against the Miao tribesmen. The right elder clenched his fists and was filled with hatred. My Miao tribe has been in the Miao tribe's territory for generations. We rarely appear in other parts of the continent and make enemies with others. I originally thought that this would ensure the simplicity of our Miao tribe's people. I didn't expect. There is no limit to human greed. Yi Qingluo opened her mouth calmly. There are two sides to everything. You thought that by restricting the Miao clansmen from leaving the Miao clan, you would be able to maintain their original intentions. But because the people they interacted with were all Miao clansmen, they don't know the loathing of the outside world. So it's easier for them to listen to other people's slanderous words, or perhaps the temptation given. Oui. When the left and right judging elders heard Yiqing Luo's words, they seemed to have suffered a blow as they staggered a few steps backwards. We must find the mole behind all of this. Let him know the consequences of betraying the Miao tribe. The right elder's voice was filled with deep sorrow and regret. In order to preserve the simplicity of the people, they specially made this suggestion. Unexpectedly, it became an opportunity for the Palace of Gloomy Darkness to make use of. The traitor who betrayed the Miao tribe and sent information to the Palace of Darkness. He would not let them off easily. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were frivolous as her face still had that lazy expression. Leave this courtyard first, in case it implicates the both of you. Yiqing Luo didn't really like these two judging elders. But he didn't hate it either. At least compared to those sanctimonious Miao elders. At least they were more sincere towards the Miao tribe. The right judge elder's face turned cold. You are the Miao tribe's guest and also the saint's friend. The Palace of Secluded Darkness is looking for the Miao tribe in such a blatant manner. If I am afraid that I will be implicated and ignore you, then I am not fit to be the judge elder. Yes. What justice and fairness are we talking about? Elder Zhuo clenched his fists and said with righteous indignation. It's you who allowed the Miao tribe to find a saintess who can truly be the saintess. You are the benefactor of the Miao tribe. Their gazes were firm and serious. Yiqing Luo looked at them for some time and laughed. I know your sincerity. Right, Judge Elder, if you really want to. Yiqing Luo, come out for this elder. Suddenly, a burst of angry curses came from outside the courtyard. Then, the gate of the courtyard was split open by a palm strike. Instantly, wood splinters flew everywhere. A skinny figure dashed into the room. His mouth was still cursing and swearing. Yiqing Luo, you jinx. Hurry up and roll out for this elder. Did he think that by hiding here he could escape from the trouble he had caused? Come out now. Old 5. When the elder on the right saw who it was, he yelled. What are you yelling about? Shut up. The person who came, wasn't it that hot-tempered fifth elder Miao? Chapter 2944. Immediately, fifth elder Miao stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. Elder Right, surely you're not thinking of shielding this jinx, right? What jinx? Don't talk nonsense. The right elder's face darkened. Fifth elder Miao pointed at the flames outside the door. He gritted his teeth and cursed. You call this nonsense? The Palace of Gloomy Darkness is already at our doorstep. The right judge furrowed his white eyebrows. When fifth elder Miao saw that he did not speak, he felt that he was in the right. On top of that, fifth elder Miao had already exposed himself in the underground tunnel. He was colluding with Miao Rongrong, and had the intention of helping Miao Rongrong get the position. Miao Yi had already become a holy maiden. The things that he had done would definitely be told to Miao Yi by Yiqing Luo in revenge. At that time, it would be difficult for him to keep his position as an elder. Fifth elder Miao wouldn't think that losing his position as an elder was a mistake caused by his improper thoughts. Instead, he blamed everything on Yiqing Luo. He originally had a belly full of anger and unhappiness towards Yiqing Luo. At this moment he felt even more. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, his and Miao Rongrong's plan wouldn't have failed. After Miao Rongrong became an elder, then he would be the hero. He was Miao Rongrong's confidant. But now, everything was disrupted. He would even suffer from Miao Yi and Yiqing Luo's revenge. The more he thought about it, the deeper the hatred in the fifth elder's heart grew. The deeper it was, the more he wanted to destroy Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo knew about the things that fifth elder Miao's mind was filled with, they would definitely look at him with disdain. She really did not have the time to complain to Miao Yi. She was not in the mood to go against elder Miao Wu. For a short-sighted and hot-tempered person like elder Miao Wu, it was only a matter of time before he suffered a loss. There was no need for her to do it herself. He could only say that elder Miao Wu thought too highly of him. No one knew that in Yiqing Luo's eyes, fifth elder Miao was not even comparable to an ant. He was not worthy of her attention at all. Fifth elder Miao was unaware of this as he shouted in rage. Ever since this woman came to the Miao tribe, there have been various incidents happening in the Miao tribe. Our Miao tribe has never had a peaceful day. How was she not a jinx? Misfortune followed him wherever he went. If she hadn't become enemies with the emissary of the Palace of Darkness during the Saintess selection ceremony, if she had not forced the second palace master of the Palace of Darkness to kill those useless people, the guards of the Miao tribe would not have been infected. If she didn't insist on Miao Yi becoming the Saintess and offend the Palace of Darkness, the people from the Palace of Darkness wouldn't have surrounded the Miao tribe at this time. Fifth Elder Miao spat out a series of incriminating evidence. Saying that, he panted heavily as the green veins on his forehead popped out, as he pointed at Yiqing Luo in a towering rage. This woman is a demoness. He is the jinx of the Miao tribe. Elder Zhua, who had been silent all this while, said sternly, Old Five, I thought you were just a little hot-tempered. I didn't expect you to be so narrow-minded. In your eyes, do you only see these superficial things? You keep saying that the Palace of Darkness had been targeting the Miao tribe time and time again because of Miss Yi. Then have you ever thought that on such an important day for our Miao tribe, Palace of Darkness totally disregarded our Miao tribe's reputation and kept creating trouble? What do they treat our Miao tribe as? Chapter 2945. Right Judge Elder sneered as he spoke, as though he was ridiculing Fifth Elder Miao's ignorance. That disdainful gaze swept past Fifth Elder Miao as he continued. If it wasn't for Miss Yi, those guards from Secluded Palace would not only be infected by those few Miao guards. If it wasn't for Miss Yi, those infected guards would all turn into puppets. By then, have you thought about what kind of state our Miao tribe would be in? Left Judge Elder also continued. Old Five, don't think that we don't know what happened in the underground tunnel, and push all the blame onto Miss Yi. If it wasn't for Miao Rongrong's evil intentions, collaborating with Secluded Palace, we wouldn't have ended up in such a state. If Secluded Palace wants to make a fuss, they need to see if we old bones allow it or not. Right and left Judge Elders spoke one after another as their imposing manner surged. Every word and sentence forced Fifth Elder Miao to take a few steps back. Fifth Elder Miao's face flushed red as his fingers trembled as he pointed at this and that with an annoyed look. Yiqing Luo, who was blocked behind by the left and right elders, listened to the two elders arguing for her. Looking at the two of them standing in front of her, that tall and straight back view, Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed past a faint sense of warmth. Most of the time, respect and help were mutual. Right and left Judge Elders treated her well. She would naturally remember this kindness. The two of them at this moment still stood in front of her without any hesitation, speaking up for her. That was enough for Yiqing Luo to remember them. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled slightly as she was about to push the two of them aside to reply. But this smile fell into Fifth Elder Miao's eyes. Fifth Elder Miao only felt that Yiqing Luo was ridiculing him, showing off that she had the help of the two elders. Immediately, Elder Miao felt as if there was a ball of anger in his head. It surged up and devoured all his rationality. The two of you have made up your mind to speak up for this jinx, haven't you? Can I take it that you're in cahoots? Yiqing Luo, you want to invade Miao tribe, trying to make use of Miao Yi's trust towards you, to ally with old left and right, to let you invade Miao tribe legitimately, right? He was howling as his eyes turned red, and without any explanation, he went up to pull Yiqing Luo. You leave with this elder. As long as we hand over a jinx like you, my Miao tribe will have peace. Yiqing Luo would never let Fifth Elder Miao bump into her. Fifth Elder Miao's hand hadn't even come close. Yiqing Luo had already moved her feet, avoiding Fifth Elder Miao's outstretched hand. Coincidentally, the left and right judges' elders quickly grabbed onto Fifth Elder Miao. Fifth Elder Miao was so infuriated that he kept on struggling as he scolded. Yiqing Luo, you slut! If you really treat Miao Yi as your friend, then for Miao Yi's sake, don't implicate my Miao tribe. You should just surrender yourself to us. Heh. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched slightly as she gave a scornful smile. A pair of long and narrow eyes curved into a faint, seductive arc. Fifth Elder Miao, if I say you're stupid, you really are. The girl's voice was filled with disdain and ridicule. Fifth Elder Miao's face flushed red from the provocation. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, wanting to pounce forward and forcefully attack. However, he was quickly held down by the elders on the left and right. Chapter 2946. Yi Qingluo's words left her mouth. Fifth elder Miao, who was making a racket, instantly shut his mouth. The other two judging elders also looked towards Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo met their gazes as she smiled calmly. The answer is no. From the moment Secluded Palace set their eyes on Miao tribe, it is impossible for Miao tribe to remain unscathed. When Yi Qingluo's last sentence left her mouth, the few elders' faces turned ghastly pale at this instance. Especially fifth elder Miao. His face was pale and ugly as it kept on twisting. His ruthless eyes shone with a dim luster as he racked his brains to think of how to rebuke Yi Qingluo's words. Yi Qingluo didn't even take a look at fifth elder Miao as she walked straight towards the courtyard's entrance. Demoness, you're trying to escape? Fifth elder Miao seemed to have found a breakthrough as he screamed in a sharp, tearing voice. He struggled as he pushed the left and right judging elders. The both of you are that demoness accomplices. The left and right judging elders restrained fifth elder Miao as they watched him struggling endlessly, cursing and swearing. The two of them looked at each other. This fifth elder Miao's every word was directed at Yi Qingluo, and he kept on leading the tempo, trying to make them hand Yi Qingluo over to Secluded Palace. Could it be Miao tribe's traitor, Secluded Palace's spy, was fifth elder Miao? This thought made the left and right judging elders' faces sunk. The gaze which they shot towards fifth elder Miao was filled with judgment. Whereas at this moment, Yi Qingluo and the rest had already walked out of the courtyard as they rushed towards the direction of Miao tribe's entrance. Miao tribe's surroundings were brightly lit. The burning torches swayed as it drew out a long silhouette. There wasn't a single person around. Yi Qingluo narrowed her eyes as she sneered as she sized up the surroundings. It looked like all the Miao tribesmen had already rushed to the entrance of Miao tribe. He had only sent Elder Miao Wu alone to the courtyard where she was staying to invite her? This was a good idea. Fifth elder Miao was a hot-tempered person. Whereas for Yi Qingluo, after hearing that Miao tribe was surrounded, she was agitated by fifth elder Miao's nasty words. She made a move on fifth elder Miao. Then he ran away with his brothers. This also confirmed that Yi Qingluo had a guilty conscience and didn't dare to face the truth of the Palace of Seclusion. In this way, the Miao tribesmen would also feel that Secluded Palace was targeting Yi Qingluo, and they, the Miao tribesmen, were innocent victims. Secluded Darkness Palace could swallow up the Miao tribe legitimately, and also push the blame to Yi Qingluo, thus alienating the relationship between the Miao tribe and Yi Qingluo. As for Yi Qingluo and the Sacred Maiden's intimate relationship, as a result, the people of the Miao tribe would no longer have the respect and faith they once had for the Saintess. Instead, they would be filled with resentment. The people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness have brains. Gui Wu, who was usually silent, also opened his mouth. It was obvious that he had seen through the plans of the Palace of Darkness. Yan Xiaoyi and Kitty Li blinked their eyes, not really understanding the meaning behind Gui Wu's words. However, their men just patted their heads and smiled mysteriously. Looks like tonight is going to be a little tricky. Yi Qingluo didn't intentionally explain as her lips curled into a smile. Master Gui Wu, you will help, right? Gui Wu lifted his eyelids as he squinted at Yi Qingluo, but didn't say a word. Not rebutting meant that he had tacitly agreed. Yi Qingluo suddenly felt that she had a backer now. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo had always been a mysterious existence. Yi Qingluo couldn't tell how their abilities were. But one thing was for sure. Chapter 2947. As long as she had nothing to worry about, she could give it her all. The group hurried to the entrance of the Miao tribe. The entrance of the Miao tribe was now surrounded by Miao tribesmen. Standing right in front of the Miao tribesmen were Great Elder Miao and the rest. On seeing Yi Qingluo and the rest silhouettes, Great Elder Miao immediately went up to them. Miss Yi, you all, why are you all? His gaze went past Yi Qingluo and the rest, looking behind them. Look for Fifth Elder Miao? Yi Qingluo scoffed lightly. She didn't have any good impression of this hypocrite. Although Grand Elder Miao's face put on a worried expression, trying to show that he didn't wish for Yi Qingluo and the others to rush over to send themselves to death. That's right. I didn't ask Old Fifth to inform you to ask you. Great Elder Miao said ambiguously on purpose. Based on what he said, it sounded like he had arranged for Elder Miao Wu to go to the courtyard to inform her, so that she could seize the opportunity to escape. It was as if he was thinking of her wholeheartedly. Looking at Grand Elder Miao's hypocritical worried face, Yi Qingluo couldn't help but tugged her lips as she sneered. Let him forcefully bring me over, to dedicate himself to your Miao tribe till my death? Great Elder Miao's expression stiffened, and he hurriedly said, And no. How? What happens to your Elder Miao has nothing to do with me. Yi Qingluo directly interrupted Grand Elder Miao's words. Since the Palace of Darkness's people specifically pointed out my name to look for me, then I'll come over to take a look at what tricks the Palace of Darkness is trying to play. His sonorous and forceful words deterred the surrounding noises of people pointing at him. Yi Qingluo's brows were frivolous as her charming eyes stared straight ahead, raising the torch up high, surrounding the Miao tribe, those people from secluded palace. At a glance, there were at least 1,000 people. They were all disciples wearing the uniform of the Palace of Darkness. Yi Qingluo's gaze finally fell onto the most conspicuous spot among the Palace of Darkness's disciples. It was a huge beast, comparable to a dinosaur. It looked ugly and ferocious, and it was impossible to tell what kind of magical beast it was. They had almost blocked the path to the Miao tribe. On the body of the magical beast, standing in front of them was a woman in a long white dress, with an ethereal aura. The woman was young and beautiful, but there was an unconcealable flirtatiousness between her brows. There was a clear sense of incongruity with his temperament and age. At this moment, the woman was staring at Yi Qingluo with a venomous look. Beside the woman was a woman dressed in the attire of the Palace of Darkness. Her face was also filled with hatred, and there was an arrogant and proud smile in her eyes. After looking at the faces of the two women, Yi Qingluo scoffed in disdain. These two people were not strangers. It was Plum, who had been humiliated under Yi Qingluo's hands, and the so-called envoy from secluded palace, Yan Zhenfei. These two people had forgotten the pain after the scar had healed. Here to stir up trouble again? Yi Qingluo was staring intently at that huge magical beast, as she was still considering if her Shiju's tiny body was able to take on that dinosaur-like magical beast's devastation. Suddenly, a cautious and tentative voice rang in her ears. Miss Yi. Yi Qingluo turned back and met with Fourth Elder Miao's slightly flustered expression. Chapter 2948. Hearing this, First Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao immediately shifted their gazes over. Fourth Elder Miao clenched his fists tightly, his face filled with caution. Ever since the Saintess accepted the inheritance yesterday, she has not shown herself. If it was in the past, we wouldn't have said anything if she didn't show herself. But now, after all, she is the holy lady of the Miao tribe and the future tribe leader of the Miao tribe. She must bear this responsibility. After Fourth Elder Miao finished his words, he carefully took a look at Yi Qingluo's expression. Seeing Yi Qingluo's calm expression, he continued. If Miss Yi knows where Sacred Maiden is, you must tell us. At least, at this time, with Saintess present, she can appease the hearts of the Miao tribe. My motive for coming to the Miao tribe is very simple, and I believe that previously, Miao Rongrong should have mentioned it to you. Yi Qingluo's expression didn't change as she met Fourth Elder Miao's eyes calmly. I need the strongest person in the Miao tribe to do something for me. After Yi received the inheritance of the Gu King, she went to do it for me. She can't come back for now. Yi Qingluo's tone was extremely calm. Fourth Elder Miao's eyes flickered a few times, unable to differentiate the truth in Yi Qingluo's words. When Grand Elder Miao heard Yi Qingluo's words, he sighed. Since that's the case, then there's no other way. After all, you don't know that secluded palaces people will surround the Miao tribe tonight. Although his words sounded as if he was speaking up for Miao Yi, it was not a big deal. But when he listened carefully, This was obviously drawing hatred for Yiqing Luo. After hearing Great Elder Miao's words, the Miao tribesmen were surrounded by the Palace of Darkness disciples and their fates were unknown. He would never understand Miao Yi's departure. Instead, he would constantly complain in his heart, no matter what the reason is. When the Miao tribe was in trouble, as the holy maiden of the Miao tribe, she had to be there. However, the holy maiden had abandoned the Miao tribe for the sake of her so-called friend. Was she still a qualified holy maiden of the Miao tribe? In the holy maiden's heart, only that so-called friend was the most important. Hence, after this thought was born in the hearts of the Miao clansmen, all their fury would be directed onto Yiqing Luo. Great Elder Miao, your words. Yan Xiaoyi was instantly infuriated. Her face turned black as she pointed at Great Elder Miao and was about to scold him. Before he could finish howling, he was stopped by Yiqing Luo. A mere Miao tribe is not worthy of my attention. Yiqing Luo was extremely arrogant as her brows were mixed with faint ridicule. Let's go take a look at the secluded palace. Yiqing Luo had long seen through Grand Elder Miao's tricks, but she was too lazy to care. To her, the Miao tribesmen were just outsiders. She didn't care how he thought about her, and she didn't want to care either. What she needed to do now was to stand on the side of Miao Yi's friend and protect the Miao tribe from being annihilated. That was enough. Yiqing Luo and the rest didn't even bother to take a look at the Miao tribe's elders as they directly walked towards the direction of that huge magical beast. Coincidentally, after fourth Elder Miao finished his question, at the instance when Yiqing Luo and the rest left, he slowly raised his head. His vision seemed as though it was directed towards Yiqing Luo and the rest's backs. But if one took a closer look, that vision went past Yiqing Luo and the rest, staring straight at those people from the secluded palace. Finally, his vision seemed to have met with someone. Chapter 2949. Under the gaze of the Miao clansmen and the disciples of the Dark Abyss Palace, Yiqing Luo and the rest slowly walked over. Mei viciously looked down at Yiqing Luo from above, as if she was standing on a higher position and had many backers, so there was a kind of unbridled complacency. Yiqing Luo, you've got guts. Mei's sharp voice was filled with jealousy. Come to think of it, you also know that the Miao tribe suffered such an undeserved disaster because of you, so you obediently came out to die. What else can she do besides throwing her life away? Yan Zhenfei was also full of hatred. Even the veil could not conceal the viciousness on her face. Could it be that she still wants to rely on the Miao tribe to avoid our condemnation? Mei covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly. Because of her, the Miao tribe has suffered such an undeserved calamity, and is facing the danger of being devoured by our palace of Yu. Why would we help her? Both of their voices were deliberately spread out with their xianqi. Almost everyone at the entrance of the Miao tribe could hear it clearly. Immediately, these two people's words aroused the hatred in the hearts of countless Miao clansmen, facing the encirclement of more than 1,000 people from the Palace of Abyss. In addition, there was an extremely ferocious-looking magical beast. These Miao tribesmen had personally witnessed the strength of the Palace of Darkness guards yesterday. If they resisted, it was like striking a rock with an egg. They were all extremely worried and frightened. They were afraid that the Palace of Darkness would destroy the Miao tribe, and they would not be able to fight back. Now, under such a worrying and fearful situation, the people from Secluded Darkness Palace had pointed out that their Miao tribe was totally implicated. It was entirely because of Yiqing Luo that they were surrounded by Secluded Darkness Palace. In his heart, a belly full of hatred towards Yiqing Luo surged up. Immediately, the Miao tribesmen who did not even dare to let out a fart under the suppression of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. At this moment, all of them were shouting for Yiqing Luo to get out of the Miao tribe. For a moment, the entire entrance of the Miao tribe was in an uproar. Mei and Yan Xiaoyi looked at each other and smiled. She felt that with just a few words, she was able to stir up so many people, causing them to burst out with complaints towards Yiqing Luo. They felt extremely proud of themselves. Gossip had always been the sharpest weapon. Once a person was corroded by rumors, and it became more and more intense, it could completely crush a person into utter disarray. They wanted to make use of the Miao clansmen to make Yiqing Luo feel the pressure from the rumors. But they seemed to have miscalculated. Facing thousands of people's accusations and curses, Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change at all. Even the group of people behind her were calm, and did not seem to be able to stir up any waves. The Miao tribesman's reprimand was like a punch hitting cotton, soft and soft. It made them feel suffocated in their chests, and they couldn't get it out no matter what. And the group of them didn't seem to care at all, completely unaffected by the numerous criticisms of the Miao tribesmen. This caused Mei and Yin Zhenfei's expressions to freeze bit by bit. Useless trash. A cold shout came from behind the two of them. Their faces paled, and they immediately bowed and nodded respectfully. Second Palace Master. Behind the two of them, a slim figure slowly walked over. That person was covered by a black veil, revealing only a pair of beautiful fox-like eyes. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.